do this, Sam. I know. It's all wrong. By rights, we shouldn't even be here. But we are. It's like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo. The ones that really mattered. Full of darkness and danger they were. And sometimes you didn't want to know the end. Because how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened?
Welcome to the Bread and Thorns podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bread and Thorns podcast, a bi-weekly podcast where we sit down and discuss literature, art, media, and other stuff we really like and how they influence the projects that we're working on. I'm Isaac.
And I'm Rosemary.
And today we're going to discuss
The Lord of the Rings!
Again.
Yes.
So for those of you who have been following, you know what we're all about. For those of you who are just joining in, you're joining in at a perfectly good time. Don't worry. Yes. But we do have about 17 or 18 episodes before this, where we talk about, Rosemary and I have talked about our favorite movies of all time, top 10 favorite movies of all time, and now we've arrived at The Lord of the Rings. Of course, if you look at our episodes list, you'll notice that there's another episode of Lord of the Rings already in our list. And so what is this? Well, we're doing 2 episodes of Lord of the Rings. We did an episode of The Lord of the Rings last time, talking about plot and story. And this time,
a lot about plot.
Because The Lord of the Rings is broken up into 3, and if you don't know why it's broken, we considered it one film. You can listen to our previous podcast to listen to our justification.
Listen to it.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I think it was pretty good.
I liked it.
Yeah. But if you want to jump right into this one, today we're going to be talking about characters. Characters in The Lord of the Rings. And of course, we're going to be talking about the Lord of the Rings films, not the books.
Yes.
And it's really important that we delineate that.
Those are 2 different things.
Yeah, the characterizations in the film and the books, there are some similarities between characters, and then other characters are completely altered.
Nope.
And so just for those who are...
There have been many throwdowns.
Oh, have there?
There have been many throwdowns about character differences.
Oh, right. Yeah. So we're not going to do those throwdowns. We're not going to do a comparison because, or at least I love both.
Yeah.
But we're just going to do the movies because we're talking about our favorite movies or films of all time. And so this is the character episode that we're going to do. You love characters, right?
Oh, yes.
What is it? That was a little bit interesting. I was going to use another word, but
concerning.
Might have younger ears listening to this podcast, so I don't want to go there.
I do love characters very, very dearly, and they're probably my favorite part of the story. And it's me personally, when I meet people, real life human beings, I fall in love with them. And so it's something where I get to know them and I get to know their character. And so when I read a book, it's so much easier than in person, because with people, I have to actually ask questions. And then, oh man, that was too awkward of a question to ask. Okay, I need to ask a less awkward question in order to get to know you. With a book, it's just here are their thoughts and feelings and hopes and dreams and everything. And then they're going to die, most likely, possibly. Anyway, point is.
Well, everyone dies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or everyone goes through death.
Almost everyone dies.
Not everyone ends dead.
Yeah. Right. Anyway, but yeah, and so it's something where with the characters, it's something where I'm able to do a shortened version of what I do with real live human beings, because I love getting to know people. I love being able to fall in love with people.
Sorry.
And so with characters in books.
My head was still in the everyone dies. And then you said what I like to do with other human beings. I was like, oh man, that
necromancy.
That went really morbid, really fast. Not sure I want to participate in that.
I don't know. Well, last time we discussed hiding your dead body or dealing with the dead body, and I would be the main suspect.
Again, to everyone who is listening,
you would be participating in this. You would just be the victim.
Oh, okay.
So
Everyone's heard it now. I am the victim. Everyone knows.
Anyway, but yeah, so I do love characters. So I literally had to hold myself back. Like there were several points where I had to like have my hands clenched because I'm like,
In the
don't
last
talk about
episode that we
characters.
did.
Don't
Yeah.
talk about characters. We have an entire episode dedicated to characters. Don't talk about characters. So now we're gonna talk about characters.
Yeah, one of the things I think when I like to think about stories or conceptualize what a story is or what any piece of art is in terms of story, character, and themes, right? So story and plot are kind of the through thread of the events that happen, and then also kind of the meaning of those events, right? And then you have characters which populate and make things happen. I think that's really important in a story. If you have elements in the story where the characters are being driven by the plot, it just doesn't feel as good.
It feels wrong.
And so you want characters that are have depth to them, have complexity to them, and carry the weight of that story because they're the ones initiating action.
Yeah. Well, as writers, pretty much every writer. That's not entirely true. Most writers understand that like characters have their own life. They have their own form. It's not just this random thing that you're putting on a piece of paper that's just dead and it's still and it's there and then you have to move them. Like most writers, you have that sense inside of like, wait a second, no, the character wouldn't do that. The character would do this. And it's not us driving it like it is, but it's way more subconscious than that.
Right.
And
when you're writing, you want to really try to get into the character's head. Right.
Yeah.
And the tricky thing about writing different characters is that people are different. And so you don't want characters to always react the same way to a certain situation.
Yeah.
I think the mark of, I don't want to say amateur in a bad way, but someone who's beginning to learn how to write stories and characters and things, one of the things that is really obvious that they're just starting is that their characters are kind of one note or two note, right? They have the same reactions, or all the good guys have the same reactions, all the bad guys have the same reactions to a certain event. And you really want to, as you grow as a writer, you really want to be able to live inside different people's heads so that you can understand how these different people would react to a certain situation.
Well, you make them more human, and that's one of the things that good writers are usually empathetic because of the fact that you can see multiple different facets of a person and multiple different views that you can have. So whether or not you agree with those views, you can at least understand and see different variations that aren't what your normal view is.
That would be, I would say, the mark of a really good writer is if you can't tell, at least on the initial pass through, what the writer's actual beliefs are. And so because they've written each character so well that you can believe that the author has this certain view, a well-written characters in a story. You can't tell whether the writer agrees with one character or another.
Yeah,
right. You don't know, and not to bring a previous movie back and hark on it for so long, but that's one of the things that I really love about things like The Dark Knight or A Silent Voice, those two movies that we did, where you don't know, like for the instance in The Dark Knight, you don't really know who to agree with.
The Joker is a hero too.
Well, the Joker is right, I would say. I wouldn't call him a hero.
I would say that
he's
he thinks
right
that he's
about
trying.
certain things. He's a hero in his own head.
And so it's something where when good writers can show, because everyone believes that they're right. Even when you hate yourself and you're ashamed of who you are, you still are absolutely thinking in concrete terms of like, I should be ashamed of myself because of this.
I am right to be ashamed of myself. Right.
And so it's something where if you can show in any form of fictional world that everyone genuinely believes that they're right, whether they are or not. And you can show that facet and you can show why they have these concrete beliefs. If you can show that, you're a good writer, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's what I think makes a really a story go from good to great. Yeah. Right? When you have the complexity of characters where when the reader sits down or to read or to listen or to watch this story that you're telling, they get wrapped into these characters and they go, oh, I understand their point of view, right? And it kind of brings the audience into a more interactive space rather than a passive entertain me kind of space, right?
Yep.
And again, we talked about this in the previous episode. I think The Lord of the Rings is one of these films where it does bring you with its characters into that space where you're not just being entertained. It is entertaining, obviously.
Oh, of course.
It is gloriously
entertaining. You can absolutely sit back, relax, and enjoy this.
But it's also one of these films where each of the characters kind of just brings you into the story of it, and you kind of start empathizing with these characters and seeing things from their different points of view. And so we're going to do something a little bit different here than just obviously. Usually we just do the story summary and we talk about what we like and all that kind of stuff. But with our characters episode, we really kind of want to break it down a little bit more. So the first thing that I kind of want to do is look at the characters and races of Middle Earth.
Yes.
Because obviously, as
They're
Tolkien
important.
wrote them, there's a lot of depth, a lot of complexity. What are
histories, differences?
Right. There's a whole ton of world building. That's actually something I didn't touch on last time, which I kind of wish I did. Like the world building in The Lord of the Rings is
magnificent.
There you go. Another beautiful word, right? Magnificent.
Better than beautiful, yeah.
It is magnificent.
The plot is gorgeous. The characters are magnificent. The world building is epic.
There's
a short word.
There's a depth to them that really, the more that you kind of fall into it, the more that you explore it, the more that you see, and then the more that you want to see even more, and then there's this continual cycle of going.
That's why there's so much, is because we want it.
And Tolkien wrote it. It's crazy, but he wrote it, right?
Yeah.
And then these I guess the people who made the Lord of the Rings trilogy, I think they did a really, really great job in painting and showing us this world of Middle Earth. And so to start off, let's go with the races first. Yeah, because that's a little bit broader, right?
And it's easier.
Yeah. So you have hobbits.
Yeah.
You have men.
Yeah.
You have elves, dwarves. No, you don't agree with dwarves? You're like Elrond.
No, I'm thinking
they're just
afterward.
part of the free peoples. That line was awesome. May the goodwill of all men, elves, and free folk. And Gimli was just like, oh, thanks. How dare you?
That was so done on purpose.
Right.
I still love the idea just because one, for fun, and it's short in characters. Okay, with Gimli, the idea is that because one of the things that's shown in the films is that Gimli's not really tempted by the ring, and the thought process was that someone had this post and it was like the ring is like, Gimli, I will give you all that your heart desires, and then Elrond's like, yeah, it's always trying to corrupt you, this, that, and the other, and he's like, I don't want to look like a little bitch in front of the elves, and so he's like, that's what I want most, and he does a little axe scene, and I was just like, I love that. That's
Gimli
his
is
deepest
definitely
desire.
one of those. Really, he is the comic relief character.
He's so amazing.
They do it really, really well. I mean, you do need a comic relief character in film, I think, to break tension.
Well, he's
but
one of
also
the comic
to
reliefs in
bring
the
levity.
books too. Him and Legolas go back and forth. That's one of the reasons why Two Towers is so amazing, is because of the fact that in the book they go back and forth and they are fun, and they're like the adult Merry and Pippin.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Merry and Pippin are also adults, but right.
Technically,
older
they're also
adults.
They're bigger adults. They have more stoutness
They have
to
more
them.
maturity as well. Well,
that's what okay, so coming back to the races,
Merry and Pippin
right?
haven't been to war.
The hobbits really are in Middle Earth the children.
They're innocent.
Right? They're innocent
and silly.
children, kind of in their little.
They love fireworks and food and ale.
And their farms.
Yeah, greenery.
And their
simple
marijuana.
Pleasures. Yeah. Pipeweed.
Old Toby.
Hey.
I have a friend, whenever we get to that scene, he just goes, Old Toby. And I'm just like, yep.
Right now it's I had a dream. We had a barrel of pipeweed and we smoked it all, and then you were sick.
Yeah. So
good.
really, the hobbits really are the children. Yeah. And we talked about this last time, I think, where the children.
You smoke weed, you're a child.
Oh. Well,
that's the takeaway.
That's not my takeaway. Please, all the kids.
Don't.
I mean,
not yet, anyway.
And so, but it really, I mean, it does come from an older kind of tradition where I would think, you would think.
Well, they also do it to relax. It's not. Have you moved on from that point?
Oh, no. I was actually going to that point.
Cool.
Yeah, you were making my point, actually,
okay,
right?
Cool.
So, before our kind of industrialized age where we look at herbs and drugs as in a totally different way.
Yeah.
Right? I'm very sure people in the countryside, back then would smoke something like marijuana just to kind of relax. It's like it's like a
Native
beer
Americans
at the end of
and
the
stuff.
day or something.
Almost every this weird, okay. right now our culture has taken it to an extreme. It was like this weird prohibition like thing of like, because the government said we can't smoke weed, then everyone was like,
well, it wasn't just smoking weed, it was like
It was
alcohol
everything.
before, right?
Yeah,
Especially
and
in
so
the United States, I would say.
when that happens, you have this backlash,
Right.
and it's something where like, to have some wine to get a little buzzed is totally acceptable and okay. To have like a
Well, even that term "buzz"
to
right,
relax.
is kind
Yeah.
of derogative.
Yeah.
But that's not really what that culture was really like. It was
No.
just, this is kind of what you did, right? And it's old Toby just relaxes you. Old Toby.
It's like shoving food in your face. Like,
Yeah.
don't do it too much, but
Right.
like you can also enjoy
Everything
it.
in excess is bad, right?
Exactly.
And so, not to justify smoking weed to children, please don't.
Please don't.
But again, you have hobbits and their innocent, like
There are alternatives.
innocent
But yeah.
culture and lifestyle, and then you have men,
Yes.
right? Men are in the films, at least. So with film, I think you have to do a thing that people in literature, reading literature and writing literature don't like, which is you have to make certain things a little bit more categorical.
Yes.
Right? Certain things a little bit more one note. So whereas
You can't just have that much depth, because then everyone will miss it.
right, well, you can't have depth like that's as much as a whole novel or a whole book series or something like that, because
Most books don't have the depth of Tolkien. And you almost said that, and I was like,
right,
yeah, no.
yeah, I had to
Stop that for a second.
delineate a little bit. So, but you know, the hobbits really in the film are children and only children, right? And in Tolkien's literary world, they are also more towards that representation, although there's a little bit more complexity,
Yeah.
right? Men in the film are very much desiring power. That's the primary thing that drives their
Everything.
right. Everything that they're about, right? They want power. So the exploration of men in this story is about wanting power, right? And then elves. What do you have for elves?
They have all the power,
They
and
have
then
all
they're
the power?
stupid.
Oh man, really?
And then you have the random people who aren't stupid, like Galadriel.
I didn't think of it that way.
And then it's more like, again,
I didn't think about it that
I
way at all.
haven't read the whole Silmarillion, so like
I'm just talking about the film
saying,
series.
I'm saying, so with elves. Oh wait, just in the movie depictions?
Yeah, just in the movie depictions. Dun, dun.
They're that older sibling that's like, I know. So I say this as an older sibling, which is dumb, but like they
So
say
to
it as like,
Rosemary's little brother, as she is describing herself
I
right
am
now.
so sorry, Basil. I'm so sorry. Anyway, but yeah, it was something where they're like the pretentious older sibling that's like, I've been around longer than you, therefore I know more than you. I'm this mature, gorgeous person. You're still like this pubescent idiot over there.
I'm a little
like,
bit
it's
sad that
fine.
we don't have a camera so that people can see you act this out, because it's pretty entertaining.
Okay. I was like flailing my arms around. It
Yeah,
wasn't
not
really-
only does Rosemary do the voice, but she actually does the poses for all these things, which is just as entertaining.
And so, but it's something where they're very, like, the weight of the world on their shoulders. Like, I know so much more than you. I know better than you. And then
Well, they're
it's
also
like,
older by definition.
they are
right?
literally older, like thousands of years older. But
Yeah.
it's also like, that doesn't mean that you know everything. That's why Gandalf is so
But it might.
important. No, that's why Gandalf is like, one of the lines that he says to Frodo is you can learn all there is to know about hobbits. Like, you can learn all hobbits. Like, you can learn all there is to know about them in a month, and still they'll surprise you. Like, and it's true, and it's something where you can learn as much as you want to about human beings, and they will still continue to surprise you.
Right.
It's amazing. God designed us that way. And so with the elves, I feel like
They have a more snooty attitude.
They've calcified a lot, and so the ones that haven't calcified or calcified less, such as like Arwen, Galadriel, they're different. They're impressive and important. And yeah, and so with the elves, they're, I guess, snooty older sibling is kind of how I usually view them.
I guess I view them in a different way. I view, especially this time around, I was paying a lot more attention
They're also
to
really
the
pretty
elves.
and talented.
Well, yeah, right. They're androgynous beings that are always sexy, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, that's what they're meant
Sexy
to
in
kind
like
of be.
a slender way, though.
I shouldn't say sexy. Beautiful,
Attractive.
attractive. There you go.
Attractive works.
Attractive androgynous people. That would be a good description, physical description of them.
See, but I prefer Aragorn to like all of the other elves.
I can't.
So
I'm not attracted to any of the males.
Oh, that works too. I thought you were gonna do like human
So
to
I'm
elf
not-
comparison.
I'm not really.
All right.
I mean,
All right.
Kate Blanchett is probably the most gorgeous person in this movie. I would say that. And so,
Okay, I think Aragorn is hotter than Kate Blanchett, but we also
I
are attracted
disagree.
to different things.
right. Well, but I would disagree heavily.
Really?
I can see the attraction of Viggo Mortensen.
No. Viggo Mortensen as Aragorn is okay for me. Like if I had, like I was
can't see
watching it
that.
all the way through, and I'm like, this is why my type is the way it is. Like I want like tanned with dark hair and like rich
But
blue
locks.
eyes, and I've wanted that.
But with locks.
Yes.
With a beard and with locks.
Yes, scruff. It's like a
Scruff,
scruffy
sorry,
beard.
not
It's a
actually a
scruff,
full beard.
not a full
Right.
beard. It's scruff with like the like longer hair,
Wavy locks. Not
wavy
curly,
long, yeah, wavy long
locks.
hair,
And
almost
brunette, right?
curly. Yeah,
yeah.
dark brunette.
So-
It looks like it's black.
So my preference, obviously, would be actually Galadriel is actually a really good representation. She's tall, slender, blonde, and just unaging.
And she's so sweet too. Like
Yeah,
like not even just her character, just like her presence is so.
Right.
I don't know how else to describe it. It's
They
just
captured it on film very, very, very
and the
well.
Christmas lights in her
Christmas
eyes.
lights.
That's
Oh,
one of my
okay,
favorite
right.
little fun facts. When
Oh,
I learned that, I was like,
interesting.
I love that. Yeah, they always, whenever they show her, they have Christmas lights behind whoever she's talking to,
Right.
so that we have the Christmas lights in her eyes, and it's angled very specifically, so that way it's
So
she
interestingly,
has sparkles.
Yes, she does still. So your version of the films, you have not seen the newest Blu-ray 4K, right?
Probably not.
I'm like when you
I
watch
have the
it's
regular
just-
extended edition
right, you
that
don't
I
watch
bought
from
several years
online,
ago.
You watch with your discs and
Yes.
everything. Yeah. So I have the Blu-ray 4K.
Yeah.
Or I don't have it. My online editions got transferred into them for some reason. So I have the old versions, and then
Interesting.
my online versions just keep getting updated.
That's weird.
And so I think it's a blessing.
All right.
So I've seen the new Blu-ray 4K version now, and when you know how there's always this blue glow
Yes.
in Lothlorien.
gone?
That's completely gone. It's really, really awesome. At least to me, because I didn't like the blue glow.
I feel like the blue is just what it is to me. It's not like good or bad. It's just there.
To me, it was
So I'm
good the
curious
first time
what
I
the
saw it,
difference is.
but that was in like DVD bootleg quality.
Oh.
And then as it kept going, as I kept rewatching, I was like, oh man, this is the part that needs to get updated. And so then the most recent one, they washed it all away, and so Galadriel as a character actually like she pops in a way that is hard to
Not
describe.
in the blue.
Yeah, because the blue is kind of smudging around her, right?
It's very soft glow kind of thing going on.
So they got rid of that, and she's now it's actually white now. The motif is white, not blue.
Oh, okay.
And
So it's more
she-
like a slightly darker Rivendell
right.
instead
and
of.
they did something with the shadows of her face where just her facial features kind of just pop out a little bit more because she's wearing white. So
She's wearing white.
And so the highlights have been slightly dimmed, and then the shadows have been brought out a little bit more. And so that when you look at Galadriel now, she like the actual person of Kate Blanchett kind of like pops out, at least to me. And it's just like, oh, yep, this is what I actually imagined when I'm thinking back on these. And
I haven't seen that, so I'll have to check that out.
So it's really good. But wow, we went on a totally.
Okay, so elves. What do you think of as elves versus men and hobbits?
Oh, right. So.
If
So-
you don't agree with the snooty older sibling, who is
I at
also
first when I watched it, I
knowledgeable.
did because the way that they can come off sometimes is that way. But as this time when I watched, in kind of literary references, you want to take the beginning a little bit more. You want to take what's said in description in the beginning as a foreshadowing of what's to be shown
I feel like
later.
they're just tired. Sorry, continue.
Who's tired?
The elves.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I was getting at, right? And so the beginning, Sam actually the first time they meet the elves is Sam and Frodo are in the forest.
Oh, yeah.
And they hear the elves going
And it's
to
like
the Grey
they're-
Havens.
Yeah,
right?
they're leaving. They're never coming back to these shores, and Sam's all like, I don't know why, but it makes me sad.
But it makes me sad, right?
Yeah.
And so Sam's one of these people that has always wanted to see elves.
Yeah.
Right? That's part of his little
We're going to
characterization.
see the elves.
Right. And he sees the elves passing away. And so it's the more I think about it, the more sense it makes to me now. Yeah, the elves are tired. They're not snooty. They're really tired. So it's like they've been around for a long time and they've seen the cycles of evil over and over and over and over. And being around for such a long time, they're tired of it. They're finally tired and ready to go home because they can't die, right? Imagine having to continue to exist for thousands and thousands of years, and all the little cycles of evil that man keeps going through, like the evil rises, they get rid of it. Evil rises, they get rid of it. Evil rises, they get rid of it, right? And it's just all these cycles. And by the end of these several thousand years, especially for Galadriel, right? She's been around for a really long time. She's been around since the first age.
Yeah.
Right? And so they're just like...
Are they in the seventh or the sixth age? Sixth?
No, this is the third age, child.
The third? Why did I think there were so many?
Wow.
Is an age 1,000 years? Because I know it's in 3018 is one of the things.
So the first age is like 6,000 years, and then the second age is like 4,000 years. And right now, I think we're in the 3,000 years of the third age.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure
it's in the
something
3,000
like
for sure. I just didn't know. Okay.
I might be wrong about the second age, but it's
okay.
So there's no set thing. It's just events that happen. So the thing that begins the second age is the destruction of. Oh man, now we're getting to the books. All right, we shouldn't go that far.
Sorry. Well, okay. With what you said about the tired, I guess it's also one of those like that's my. I'm not even that old, but like it's something where like that's kind of been my experience. Is like
right.
When I'm tired, people just see me as being pretentious. And it's like, no, it's because I've tried all the things that you're recommending and I've done this and I've gone through the cycles and human beings are going to hurt other human beings. And I really don't have any control over being able to stop that. I can just be here for whoever it is, whether it's me or someone else after it happens. And I'm just tired.
And you got to remember the elves were part of that. Right?
Yeah.
They were the ones that pursued Morgoth from Valinor into Middle Earth, right? And so... And there's aspects of that are actually explored in the films.
And like
right.
I have often been told that like
that
somehow
you're pretentious and snooty.
Yeah, like both. Like I've had the like I'm super amazing, caring, empathic person, and then also somehow that I don't.
A joke just went through my head and then disappeared, and I'm really angry now.
I'm so sad.
Because it was a funny joke, but now I don't have it in my head.
Insert joke here.
Yeah, I'll re-record and just insert the joke. No, I'm kidding. I'm not going to do that.
No, that's too much work. But yeah, and so it's something where I guess how I see the elves is how I feel other people see me. Versus like the second that you started talking, I was like, oh, fudge. I was like the tired and the cycles and okay, right. That's accurate. I don't like it, but it's accurate.
So I think the films really, especially since we're in this period of the War of the Ring, right, where it's about to pass into the fourth age, the elves are really a kind of a representation of passing legends, right? They're about to leave, and they're kind of like you can hear the despair in Elrond's voice when he's talking about it, right? He's like, men are weak, dwarves
he's
are
like,
isolated.
Who's gonna do it? Men.
Elves are leaving, right?
Yeah.
No one's gonna do it. Gandalf says men, but Elrond's like, no, men are weak, right?
He's like, I was there when man messed up multiple times.
Right. And so they're kind of just they're wanting to get away from it now, right? And they have the option.
Well, it's also like to remember Tolkien wrote this after being in World War I, and so it's something where for him
World War I and World War II. Yeah.
But he started it after World War I, and then he
started The Hobbit during World War I believe.
Yeah. And
no, sorry.
Because he was in a bar and he wrote down the...
Right. I was wrong.
There was a hobbit who lived in a hole.
That was after. So after
World War I. Yeah, it was before World War II, though.
He began, I'm pretty sure, Baron and Luthien during the trenches of World War I. Which is crazy to think about.
Good.
Like,
point is that he sees... And he... I will mention this character later, but Tolkien kind of based the character Faramir around himself. Partly just Faramir just kind of popped up into existence for him, as characters sometimes do. And it was something where Faramir is very, very pointedly about like, I don't love swords. I don't love arrows. I don't love like that. I love what they defend. I love what they protect. I love what they are used for when they're used to protect something. And so it's something where you're dealing with a very... I wouldn't call him a pacifist, but he wants peace. But he also knows that you have to fight in order to get it.
Yeah. So right. Yeah. And that's one of the themes that runs throughout all of Middle Earth is this the idea of the cycles, but then also the idea of how do we get beyond this this thing? Can we get beyond this thing?
Yeah. And so he uses the characters to show you what that looks like. And so so elves, okay, that are just tired and they've seen all these cycles, and then you have dwarves.
And then dwarves
who live in caves and try not to pay attention to anything else in the entire world because they just want Mithril and the Arkenstone and
Well, right. So
Jewels.
in this film trilogy, not counting The Hobbit, the dwarves are a little bit underdeveloped in a sense because we don't get to see much of them. We just get to see the results of what they've done in places like Khazad-dûm, right?
Think of it though, they just went through like a gigantic amount of war and stuff with the Hobbit, so a bunch of them are like dead and still probably like recovering and taking care of stuff.
I mean,
and so they're not,
like even disregarding
even before
the Hobbit.
that. Oh,
Like disregard because the trilogy was made before the Hobbit trilogy.
true.
Right?
Okay, so yeah, just in the films, the only thing you really learn about them is like in Two Towers when Gimli's talking about how the women have beards too.
Yeah. So right. So the only thing that you get about dwarves are that the female and male
both
sexes
bearded.
look very similar.
Yeah.
Right. And so I do like. So, one of the things that I really wish. So I actually really like The Hobbit.
Okay.
I love The Lord of the Rings. I still really like The Hobbit. One of the things that I wish they did was they spent just a little bit more time, like 3 more months in pre-production. Because what The Hobbit what we see of the dwarves is basically in Moria, right?
Dead.
And yeah, dead. They're right. But there's a story there because who dies in Moria? Do you remember?
Balin and
Balin.
No.
It's Dori and Nori also died in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Balin, Dori, and Nori.
Yeah.
They actually it might be not Dori, it might be Owen. Sorry.
I think you're right.
I'm pretty sure I'm right too, but I'm just saying
The 99%.
Right. Right. 99% all the time. So those 3 actually die in Moria.
Yeah.
Nori, I'm pretty sure, is the one that has the book. So when Gandalf takes that book, he's taking it out of Nori's dead hands. Right? The Hobbit had a chance to portray that. Because what they could have done in the differentiation of the 13 dwarves was show that Nori was obsessed with books and use that as a way to link Bilbo and Nori, right? Because Bilbo eventually writes the Book of Westernness, right? He writes there and back again.
And so it could be Nori's like, I want to write a history of the
right,
dwarves.
me too, and they kind of get along.
And he's like, I want
right?
to visit the families and cousins and whatnot and go do that.
And
then when you see him in Moria, and you're just like,
well, when you get to the Lonely Mountain, when they're exploring the mountain, you should see him
Nori
like go towards the
writing?
books, right? He should be writing it, like documenting everything down, so that by the time we get to Moria, and you see that book,
no, the
it's
Hobbit
the exact
has
book.
Killy's dead brother, cousin. Then you have
Killy,
Thorin, Bilbo, and then Gandalf.
Right. So they didn't really.
Those are the characters.
Well, those are the characters with
they
depth,
focus on,
right? But they had other ones that they could have done, which is Dori and Nori, and they could have done it so well here. So and then Dori could have been the one that was trying to protect Nori all the time, so you know why they're both there. And so when we get in Fellowship to that tomb,
it would hit you even more.
Right, it would hit you. Be like, wait, I've seen that book before, right? Oh, it's not just Balin in there, right?
Yeah. This is why The Hobbit isn't on our top 10.
Well, it's why The Hobbit's not on my top 10. It used to be in yours.
I used to have it as like a whole thing, but I also, and I mentioned this before, like I had all 3 of my favorite Pride and Prejudice movies as like one thing. So I also had Robin Hood Men in Tights as my number 1 movie of all time.
You used to have that. So I still haven't seen that movie.
It's so good.
I should probably watch it.
I feel like you would appreciate Spaceballs way more than you would appreciate Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Spaceballs. That's the parody, right?
Of Star Wars?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Parody comedy.
Yeah. Well, that's Mel Brooks.
Parody.
Mel Brooks does parody comedies. That's what he does. So.
Yeah. So for me, the dwarves, coming back to Lord of the Rings, Spaceballs to back to Lord of the Rings, the dwarves are kind of just an isolated thing.
Like they're like that, though.
They're more of a force rather than a complete race yet.
Oh.
Right.
Well, that's kind of how they treat themselves too.
Yep,
so
I agree.
It's
That's how
very
Gimli
accurate.
is very much portrayed in.
It's very
in this film.
accurate, which is also one of the reasons why like Gimli doesn't start getting like really attached until he doesn't get attached until like Galadriel, and then he's like,
right.
Oh my God, you're amazing. I love you. I love you, I love you, I love you. Hi. Hi. And then later when Legolas is like if you were like you're you would die before your stroke fell. Mm-hmm. Like that line, he's like, oh my gosh, Legolas.
These elves would
Are we bros?
Oh, that's another thing they missed.
Wait, what?
In The Hobbit, in my opinion, Tariel should have died along with Philly.
I think so too.
Is it Philly? No, Philly is Killy. Yeah.
Philly
Sorry.
is blonde.
Philly's
He's
blonde.
he's the hot one according to dwarf standards, and men's standards. Killy is the one who's only attractive as far as like elves go.
Well, as far as any reasonable person.
Oh no, Killy is the most attractive as far as like men and elves.
Right.
But what was it?
Like, they
there was a
purposely
breakdown.
left
It's like,
his face
Bomber is
untouched.
attractive to hobbits because he represents like everything that they want in life. Like he's amazing. Because he's like super freaking fat. Like he's huge, and he just anyway. And then Killy is attractive for. It is like the dwarf attractive to elves and men, and then like Frodo is like the hobbit that's attractive to elves but not to hobbits, like the way that they have it in the films, like just the different
I
characters.
guess I can see that.
Yeah, and so they go through like these different things that are like
I
who's
would never
attractive to
have
who.
thought that way.
Yeah.
I just know that, I mean, just by like kind of silhouette and the fact that they didn't mess with his
Bomber
face.
would be the Hobbit King.
Not the Goblin King, the Hobbit King.
The Hobbit King.
The Hobbit King.
I feel like they wouldn't really have a king. He would just kind of be there, and they'd be like,
Hobbit Lord.
"We like you."
Hobbit Lord.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what he'd be. Hobbit Lord.
Lord would work.
Lord of the Manor. Anyway, so yeah, the dwarves are just kind of that force of nature,
Yes.
right? And yeah, you're right. It really is. If Taria had died in
And Gimli is
the
super hot stuff to dwarves.
Okay. That was, well, okay. All right. So if Taria had died, and I think that would have given the Legolas character like this question of how do dwarves and elves be friends, right? And that would have informed a lot more at the end.
So it would have been more like a Romeo Juliet type thing, and how like Mercutio takes it. Does Mercutio
Oh, I
die?
also
I
okay.
really
So
hope I
if
didn't
I were
mess
to
that
make
up.
one change to the Hobbit, only a single change, it would be to change the Killy and Tauriel relationship to be what's it called? Not romantic, but platonic. I would change it to be platonic.
They're friends?
Yeah, because what that does, and then of course have Tauriel die. So
With
that,
Killy.
yeah. So they die as friends fighting for each other. That informs for Legolas's character in the future how you can be friends with Gimli. And so it's just these character pieces that you can do to pull that thread a little bit through. But because it's romantic, it's like, well, it's not like Legolas is gonna,
Gimli, I love
get
you.
with Gimli.
Gimli, you're so hot.
Right. And so it's makes
And
it a
both
little
of them
bit
would
too
find
abstract.
each other on. Actually, that's not entirely true. Legolas would be okay, not Orlando Bloom Legolas, but like Legolas, where he's all buff and beefy and whatnot, would actually be considered attractive as far as men and dwarves because of the fact that he'd be like super buff.
So Hobbit Legolas.
No,
Oh no, Trilogy Legolas.
book Legolas.
Book Legolas.
Book Legolas.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway.
So I think breaking down those characters are really interesting, because then when you start to kind of go in, like when you watch the film and you begin to see the tropes being kind of explored and then deconstructed with each of the characters, especially with the Fellowship,
Yeah.
it brings quite a bit more depth.
That is actually one of the best things with it, is you have like all of these characters could have been one note.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And then you get to know them and you're like, you're amazing. And just move forward.
You have to breathe in very strangely.
Yes. Yes.
Suck in your breath when
Yes.
you watch the character.
It causes
The
it causes
entire
breathing
11 and a
problems.
half hours. 11.3, 11.5,
11.2.
11.2. Okay.
11.2.
All right. Got it. I'll get that somehow.
At some point, I haven't actually done it all the way through, but I really wanted to spend an entire 24-hour period just watching The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings.
Is The Hobbit that long?
Yes. I want to say that it's somewhere in the vicinity of like 10, 12 hours too.
If I remember correctly, the third one was like 2.5 hours at max.
No, because there's extended ones too.
I know. Yeah. That's what I mean. On the extended version, it's still only 2.5 or 2 hours and 40 minutes or something like that. You're waiting for your computer to load so that we can see. You don't see it.
Do the math. It gave me one. I'm like,
They only gave you one of the films.
It's similar because it's 3 hours and 2 minutes for Unexpected, and then 3 hours 48 minutes for
Yeah,
middle
the
one,
second
and then
one was the longest.
4:11 for the last one.
Really? It
Yeah.
was 4 hours?
Extended. Yeah. Yeah?
Huh.
Oh, wait. Wait,
no,
wait, wait, wait,
that's
wait,
not
wait,
right.
wait, wait.
That's not right.
Why are you being...
That's not right. The last one is definitely not 4 hours.
532 minutes. Oh, why don't you give
What?
me hours? You're mean. Google is being mean to me. 19 hours and 39 minutes. Oh, no, that's Lord of the Rings
full-
plus The Hobbit.
Yeah, so not 22. Yeah. The third Hobbit is not that long, which
I'm
is
so
unfortunate.
irritated.
But
Well, they split, like, okay, so Lord of the Rings, yes, it's one story that's broken up into 3, but it had enough in it can be broken up into 3. The Hobbit only had enough to really be broken up into maybe 2.
I disagree.
Really?
I deeply disagree. I really don't like that argument that people make where they say The Hobbit would have been done, but would have been much better as a two film arc. I heavily disagree because there are 13 dwarves. If you have 13 ensemble characters,
Okay,
you have
if they
enough
had gone
room.
in depth with the characters, you could have had a whole TV show.
Yes, but
So
that
if
means
you're gonna
that the
do
3
movies,
films. So
actually,
if-
Marvel kind of redefined things with that, so you probably could just
Sure, yeah. So that's what I'm
a
saying. You
whole
have
movie.
13. You have. I think there are only a few missteps for me in terms of character in Unexpected Journey.
Okay,
Right, and then Desolation of Smaug was very, very good.
I think so too.
And then Battle of Five Armies just dropped the ball.
Yeah. Well, it's also like, okay, it was really weird to me because I watched them all in theaters. I actually can say that I've watched all the movies in theaters because they did a Lord of the Rings marathon before the first Hobbit came out.
Oh, right.
It was so fantastic.
That was good.
It was so much fun. Anyway.
I've also seen all the movies in theaters.
Yeah.
For a different reason, but yeah.
Yeah, you were alive and could go.
You weren't alive?
I was alive, but I could not go. When Return of the King came out, I was like 5, maybe.
Oh, you
no,
could've
I was
gone.
younger. No, my parents were
could've been
like,
snuck
"You are with a
in."
neighbor. We are going to the midnight thing on our own. Screw you, small child."
You could have been snuck in with a purse. Yeah.
Oh, I would have loved that. I would have loved it. My parents. No, actually, sorry, I wasn't born then.
Like
I
in
was
your mom's purse.
when my mom was
that
pregnant
dog.
with me, she went and saw Jurassic Park, and she now blames that for all of my violent tendencies
You saw Jurassic Park as
in
a
the
child?
womb.
Oh,
So she's like,
Jurassic
because I
Park.
experienced
what was
it.
that, 95, 96?
97.
97. When did I see Jurassic Park?
96, 97, but it was still running in theaters.
Why do I
during
feel like I
97.
saw Jurassic Park in 95?
Nah,
That's
earliest
so
would have been
weird.
96. It
I
would
know,
not have been.
But for some reason in my head, it's 95.
Because it wouldn't have been in theaters for more than 4 months.
It wouldn't have been in theaters, right?
In 95? No.
Yeah.
No. No.
So-
You might have read the book.
No.
No, because you were, you would
Yeah.
have been infant. Never mind.
Yeah. that's not happening. Anyway, so
Yeah.
I think
Dwarves.
there's so
They could have done a lot more depth and they didn't, which
but
sucks.
I don't really blame them because they just
It would've been difficult.
The crunch time that they had for the pre-production of The Hobbit
Yeah.
and then the post-production of The Hobbit
Yeah.
was like when you go into the behind the scenes, it's actually a miracle that The
Yeah.
Hobbit turned out how good
Yeah.
The Hobbit actually turned
Yeah.
out given what they were
Given to go through. Like,
Yeah.
it was just.
So I do consider The Hobbit like one of those like, wow, this movie should also have been much worse.
Like Lord of the Rings was on purpose, done very, very, very well when it could have failed. The Hobbit was turned out well despite
Right.
everything
Yeah.
that happened
Despite
to
everything. Right. And so getting back to The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. So characters are so there's pretty much your races, and so the dwarves have existed not as long as the have they existed as long
Nope.
as the
So
elves?
it's
They're younger
elves
too,
and then dwarves
and then
men.
men.
Yeah.
And then hobbits haven't hobbits existed for about as long as dwarves.
Hobbits
anyways?
we don't know
Yeah,
because
because it is
hobbits
kind
are
of-
an offshoot of man.
Oh.
So we don't
Okay.
know necessarily. This is again what I remember from a long time ago when I
and
was really
study.
into this, right?
Yeah.
So, hobbits are an offshoot of man. We don't know where and when they came from,
Mm-hmm.
but they are an ancient race as well.
Yes.
As a split off of man. So
Yes.
yeah.
They're just very good at hiding and being sneaky and
Yeah.
silent because they don't want anyone to bother them.
So what we're gonna do now is we've done the races, right? Now there are a lot of characters in the Lord of the Rings, and each film introduces new characters.
Yes.
And each of these films introduce new characters and in an in-depth way.
Yeah.
Which makes very difficult
We could
to
literally
actually
walk through every single character and some of the side characters, like the orcs. We could go through some of the orcs and how
Right.
the orcs have depth of character. Like, come on.
You go through Gothmog. And so,
Oh, goodness
so
gracious.
instead of doing that, we've decided to, each of us are going to take 2 characters that we really liked this time around as we watched through.
Yeah.
And we're going to do a kind of detailed breakdown. Now, I'm not sure how well this is going to go down.
Nope.
Because this is the first time we've done this.
And we could literally talk for hours about pretty much any of these characters and go back and forth.
I was just telling Rosemary, like before, my entire document for The Lord of the Rings, and I could have written more, but it's about 10,000 words. That I've just notes as I've written on, as I was watching the film this week. And I
didn't even take notes because I was just like, no, I'm not, no. No.
So my characters itself is the biggest portion of that 10,000.
That makes sense.
And it's 7,500 words.
They're
So I have a lot of
I don't even have a word.
stuff.
I don't even have a word. Every day or otherwise, I don't have a word. Just Lord of the Rings, genuinely, like...
It's beyond words.
It's beyond...
It's French.
Functioning capability.
Magnifique. So
Oh, goodness gracious.
it's so beyond English word. It's so beyond words that it's French.
That we just don't need to pronounce anything. It is
I
a
don't
French
even know-
word.
is
It is a
magnifique-
French word. It's just not pronounceable.
Is magnifique a French word? I'm
Yeah.
not sure. Oh,
Magnifique
I
is
was just
French.
making a joke. I
No,
didn't even
I'm
know
pretty
that
sure
was.
that's Magnifique would be French, I believe so.
Oh man.
Not Spanish.
All right, listeners, fact checked us.
It might be Italian, but I'm pretty sure it's French.
Please tell us if it's French. All
Yeah.
right. So we each of us are going to take 2 characters.
Yeah.
Do you want to do this? You do 2 and I do 2, or you do 1, I do 1, you do 1, I do 1.
1-1.
1, 1, 1, 1.
Yeah.
All right. So you want to go first?
Bleh. Sure.
All right. What
Okay.
is your first character that you want to do a detailed breakdown of?
I'm going to do the one that I love a little bit more first just because like I love them both, but it's not equal. And I've like the older I get, the more that I'm just like So, one of my favorite characters that did not used to be my favorite character is Boromir.
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 Who's Boromir?
Boromir
He only lasted one movie.
He only lasted one movie. He like kind of half
He's
showed
not
up.
important.
He showed up in like 2 Towers, and he was like a hallucination in number 3, but because Denethor sees him instead of
I
Faramir.
remember that, yeah.
Yeah.
So
It will
I guess he
depend on the
did make it
manner
with
of
all
your
3
return.
films. Sorry, Sean Bean. My bad.
Yeah.
You were in
He
all
was
3
just
films.
dead.
He was just an illusion.
Did he last longer than Game of Thrones?
Yeah, a whole season.
Okay, so he did. So he lasted longer in Game of Thrones. Okay.
Oh, spoiler warning for Game of Thrones.
Sorry, guys.
Whoa.
He dies in everything.
Right.
I don't know a single movie that Sean Bean doesn't die in, except for National Treasure,
Our bad guys.
and he gets arrested.
Oh man.
So-
I feel bad.
Yeah.
But it is a significant character in Game of Thrones. So yeah.
Anyway, point is, so with Boromir, so Boromir is man. Okay, he hails from the city of Gondor. Okay, his line has been made the stewards of Gondor. So for at least a few centuries, right? At least a few centuries, they haven't had a king. It's just been the stewards of
It's
Gondor.
been more than a few centuries.
I thought it was at least a millennia.
Because Isildur died in...
Because of the Great War battle thing.
When did he die? He died in the first few
Which was
years of
Sauron.
the Third Age.
Yeah,
And
so it's
then-
been at least 3,000 years.
And then Gondor and Arnor. So Arnor is north, Gondor is south. They split.
Okay.
The
is
realms
Mordor in
split.
between the two?
What?
I'm thinking of maps because if Gondor's south, Mordor's north of Gondor.
I'm personally offended right now.
You should be. I'm so sorry. I have not studied
What?
it. I can recognize a map of Middle Earth at like a distance, but I couldn't
Right.
like if you gave me a puzzle and I had to put the names on where
Arnor
the
was the
cities go, I
kingdom of the
might be
north.
able to figure it out.
All right, and Gondor is the kingdom of the south.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
so it's
Wait,
not
so
Mordor in between.
so wait, because
Mordor is to
Aragorn
the
is a ranger
east.
from the north. Okay, so
Right. So what happens?
is Rohan more north than
no. So
Gondor?
yeah, technically yes, but it's more like
So Mordor
northwest.
is south of Gondor.
No. Oh my gosh.
Is it
Mordor is
east
east.
of Gondor? Okay.
Wow.
Point
Okay.
is,
I mean,
there's
I
a
shouldn't be
city-
talking because I don't remember exactly where everything
There's
is, but
a
this is
city
just
called Gondor.
no. Gondor is a
Is
realm.
a region.
Yeah.
Fine.
Oh,
fine.
jeez.
He.
All right. So All right.
Do you want to do the background on Boromir? So that way it's more accurate.
No, it's fine. You can do your own. But Arnor was the kingdom in the north. The Witch King of Angmar destroyed that.
There we go. Okay.
That kingdom over there, and Gondor is what remains of the people, the men of Numenor.
Yes.
So but.
Because the stewards of Gondor all have a little bit of Numenor's blood. That's why they do live a little bit longer.
So
usually.
Isildur's sons are all kind of killed.
Yeah.
Right? Or his descendants, I should say, except one that is in the north, and they kind of just like basically run around. The Rangers in the north are actually descendants of the Arnorian kingdom, and so the Grey Company that doesn't appear in the films, but is a pretty significant part of the books. They're kind of like this cadre of rangers that Aragorn is in charge of, right? And they're actually the ones that protect the Shire.
Oh.
So a lot of the reason why the Shire is so well protected is because of these rangers. But what happens is that when Aragorn is about to go to Gondor, all of the Grey Company, they come down to support Aragorn, and then Saruman goes north to the Shire.
And that's why the Shire.
That's why there's a scouring of the Shire. So,
I didn't know any of that. Cool. I'm a Lord of the Rings fan.
Well, the film doesn't get to that, right? And so what you have in The Hobbit, which they try to touch on this, is the men of the North buried the Witch King of Angmar and the Nine into these tombs, and that's their explanation of what's going on. So when Aragorn goes to in the Fellowship of the Ring, when he goes to Weathertop, that Amon Sul is a guard tower that used to be one of the prime guard towers of the men of Numenor in Arnor, but then it was kind of taken over and like back and forth and all this kind of stuff with the Witch King. There's a whole history behind this. So there is no king that exists in Gondor. It's just the steward, and then Ecthelion, and then Denethor, and then Boromir.
Yeah,
that's
and
a
Boromir
very quick
is
and
the firstborn
off the top
son
of my memory
of
history
Denethor,
of it.
and his mother died when he was 10. Okay, so it was just him, his dad, and his 5-year-old brother when his mom died. And Denethor went kind of crazy because
a little bit.
He's like, my wife is dead. Human beings suck, and we will all die. And the only one who can save me is my 10-year-old
This is
son.
all in the books, right?
Yes.
Yeah. We don't have much of this in the
See,
films.
but this is the thing is like because Boromir is such an impressive character that when you watch, like honestly, like I hated Boromir until I became a teenager. And it was something where I despised him. I was like, you are a horrible person.
The rebellious teenager loved Boromir. That's what I'm hearing right now.
Kind of, but it wasn't even, it was more like,
he
understood
empathizes with
him.
me. He wants the ring. No, I'm just kidding.
It's because like one of the things like,
I'm just kidding. I'm not.
His character, so like he's one of the most tragic characters.
Oh, I totally agree.
And like one of the things that like pretty much sums up his character is as he's, spoiler alert, as he's dying, as we've already said he dies, but like as he's dying at the end of Fellowship, which technically in the books doesn't happen until Two Towers, which flipped me when I read them, I was like, wait, Fellowship? I'm so confused.
Half of the breaking of the Fellowship at the end of the Fellowship of the Ring does not happen in the book. It happens in the Two Towers book because you don't get to see the Aragorn side. And so the Fellowship of the Ring is all Frodo and Sam. It's all Frodo, actually, I'm pretty sure. And so you don't get to see the rest of the Fellowship.
The death of Boromir or anything else until Two Towers.
Yeah. So you actually don't know what's happening. You have no idea what's happening, which is
anyway,
great.
It's amazing.
I love how Tolkien did that.
Oh. And then you have Frodo and Sam. They're like, hey, everyone's like, fine, like that's fine. Like at least they're gonna be safe without us. And then he dies.
Yeah, that's what you assume. And then you get to the next book, and you're just like, wait.
But as he's dying, one of the things is he's talking to Aragorn, and he's like essentially all I wanted to do was protect my city, and I failed. So like as he's dying, he's like, I am a failure. Like that's what he's dying with. And it was something where all I saw as a kid was, okay, you have this like not as attractive as Aragorn, basically being a petty weirdo who just wants power for himself, and he's like obsessed with this, and then he condescends to Frodo, like the little head rub on in Caradhras. Nope, my mouth did not want to.
It's
The
okay.
mountains.
Yeah, Caradhras.
Yeah, it was something, that little head rub. I was like, I hate you. Like the first time that I remember seeing that was like hatred of like, how dare you do that? He is older than you. You. Bad words I didn't know yet. Actually, that's not true. I totally knew them. Anyway, point is,
I can see why you liked Aragorn, because he was like about to pull out his sword and like murder
Yes.
Boromir if he did
Yes.
something wrong. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, totally. No, Aragorn is. Well,
My
that's how
hero.
Tolkien designed him, as the ideal man, kind of. And versus with Boromir, Boromir is an accurate representation of how we actually are, not who we want to be, but how we are. Usually, most of us. And so for me, I don't know how else to describe it, but it's something where with his character, words. Come on. It's something where, like, we all fail. Like, I am in my 20s, and it's something where, like, I'm watching, like, those
You're
cycles
as old
that I
as
was talking.
Boromir was.
Oh, God.
I'm just kidding. I think he was a little bit older.
I thought he was a little bit older.
Yeah.
Not by much, but, like, he's like,
a
he's
little
in
bit
his 20s, but it's, like, late 20s.
I think he's actually in his
think he's, like,
mid
25?
30s.
No. Oh.
I'm pretty sure.
I know that, like, Sean Bean clearly wasn't his
Was he?
I don't
Was Sean
know.
Bean that old at that point?
I think so.
Oh man.
I think he's 30.
All right, now I need to go back and look.
Anyway, point is, it's something where, like, for example, like, I want, like, if I could sacrifice my life for anything, I would want to sacrifice it defending my people, defending the people that I love, the people that I care about, maybe even people that I don't really know. But it would still be like, I'd want to die defending something, protecting something. And it's something where that's all he wants to do. Like, the reason that he's in, why he goes to Rivendell is to help his father and defend
was
and protect
wrong.
his people.
I was more right than you, but
How old is he?
according to Screen Rant, unlike the future king of Gondor, however, Boromir was a spry 40 years old.
Well, yeah, Aragorn's older. So he's 40. All right.
Spry 40 years old.
Compared to Aragorn.
That's really funny. I've never thought of 40 years old as spry. I'm sure they wrote it that ironically. But
Yeah.
But
That's
I
amazing.
like that. So he was 40,
Okay, that makes more. Yeah, I was like, he doesn't seem
according to Screen Rant.
20s.
Yeah.
How is this? Because that's one of the things is, like, Frodo's 50 when
Not
he starts
in the
the
movies,
adventure.
Not in the film.
Isn't he?
No.
I thought he is.
No.
So he would have been.
He's in his tweens. He's in his 20s in the film. They altered the age of a lot of the characters. Yeah. I mean,
Okay,
Legolas is
I
still
just thought they
thousands of
altered
years
the
old, but-
body type. I didn't think that they did that.
Yeah, they had to alter it because there's a 30-year gap. No, there's a 9-year gap between in the books
Yeah.
between the
So I was 40 and then
long
he's-
expected
then he's
party
50.
and Gandalf's first
Yeah.
revisit. There's a 9-year gap,
Yeah.
and then there's another gap
Yeah.
after that in which Gandalf comes back and keeps on coming back, but he
Yeah.
doesn't stay. And so, oh man, you're making me pull out my book memory. But yeah, in the books, Frodo is 40 to 50, but in the films, there's almost less than a year of time between everything, and so they scrunched all of it up into one.
I thought they just made him the final age. Anyway, okay, in the books, Frodo is older than Boromir. And so because that's what I was going off of, kind of, well, it's also just insulting. Like, you don't want this, like, older person. Like, so, like, as a kid, I was like, really? I'm trying to, like, help save the world, and you're gonna pat my head?
Mm-hmm.
You jerk. Like, it was just, anyway. And
Well,
so
it works. Yeah, right. So
yeah.
and then you love
So
Boromir now because
of the fact that because of that depth of character that you don't really get to see as a kid. As you get older, you're like, oh, I have made mistakes. Oh, failure. Okay, cool. I've
been
intimately
Boromir.
familiar with that.
Right.
And like everyone wants to, maybe not everyone, but like most people want to be Aragorn. Most people want to be like Faramir or Aragorn, and those are the two. And it's something where Faramir is definitely the softer, more like, like he's friends with Gandalf. They talk about it in the book. It's not quite as talked about in the movies. They mention it briefly, but not really. And so it's something where Boromir is the big strong dude and Faramir is like the soft weak dude, and that's not actually the case. And so it's something where like Boromir protected and defended Faramir for years. So he also had like that older brother, like, I will protect you. So he did that with like his country too, or like, I will protect my people. And he's magnificent like that, where it's that's what he does, is he defends and protects even when he can't. And so he goes to Rivendell thinking like, this is a fool's errand, like this is stupid that we're even going here. And then he's like, oh my gosh, the ring is actually real. Oh my gosh, we have a power of the. And one of the things I noticed this time is I now finally for the first time understand why Boromir thought they could use it against Sauron, because in the battle Sauron has the ring on and is able to defeat like 50 men at once with one swing. And so he thinks that it brings strength, because that would have been maybe part of
that way. Right.
Okay, and this is the first time that I've ever thought of this, is that it's possible that was what was passed down, is that you get that strength.
Right. Oh,
so it's
no,
not
you're
because
correct
it
about that.
emphasizes things. And so instead of emphasizing that lust for power, it would emphasize the strength as well as that. And so he like, it finally clicked as to why Boromir would want it to bring it to his people, is like, hey, let's use it as a weapon against the enemy. And I never gotten that before.
Right. So I think that's the portrayal that is. I'm not saying that's an illegitimate like interpretation. That is a very real. That is the interpretation I think you're supposed to get out of that part of the film, where you have the connection between Sauron using the ring in the beginning, right, and then Boromir saying this is a gift, right?
Yeah.
We should use it. So I'm 100% sure that is part of the lore. But you have another aspect to it, which you actually mentioned a little bit before, when Boromir was defending Faramir, right?
Yeah. From his crazy dad.
Yeah, and and if you pay attention to the words that Denethor uses, it's the exact words that Boromir uses in justifying how to use the ring. And when you look at the interaction,
it is exact.
When you look at the interaction between Denethor and Boromir, it's very clear that Denethor has brainwashed Boromir. It's very apparent.
Boromir still has his own views and feelings, but it mostly is around Faramir. Everything else is Denethor's brainwashing.
It's a reflection of Denethor, right? And so what you see in the movie, and so this is actually a turn that one of the things that the film did they took a detail in the book and they applied it elsewhere, right? And so there's a line that Faramir says that about Boromir in The Return of the King. He says, they're so alike, my father and I, right? Do you remember that line? He's talking to Pippin, trying to cheer him up, right?
Yeah.
And then Faramir goes, they're so alike, like referencing Boromir. They're so alike, Boromir and my father, right? They're very alike. And that's why they get along. But in the book, it's the opposite. In the book, it's actually Faramir and Denethor that are alike.
Which is why Denethor has projected that warriorness of himself onto Boromir. He's like, you are strong. Like he's praising of Boromir instead of Faramir, because Faramir's what?
So
that's usually how it works.
No. So it's very specific in the book. It's very specific. And so in the book, it's very well known that Denethor is an extremely smart person. Like cunningly smart.
Not basic people can use the Palantirs. So it's something where he was able to figure that out, even if it wasn't really the best option.
He still has some of that blood of Numenor in him.
Yeah.
Right. But
that's why he can be crazy, is because he's brilliant.
Well, yeah, in that way, yeah. So, but Boromir's not like that. Faramir is like that. And what happens is that the way that Denethor thinks. So, this is a really funny story. So, this is only in the books, obviously, but you know how Aragorn's super old?
Yes.
Right. So, actually, Aragorn went down to Gondor when he was younger.
Yep.
And that was when Denethor was a really young child.
Mm-hmm.
And his father, Ecthelion, really loved Aragorn. In detriment to Denethor.
Oh, no.
But Denethor doesn't know it because Aragorn was in disguise. Right? But he was treated like a lesser. Right? And so Denethor grows up, right? And he has this kind of poor paternal instinct with him, right?
Yeah.
And then he sees himself in Faramir.
And is like, you're a piece of
treats
trash.
Faramir in the same way. Whereas Boromir
is a little bit more like Aragorn.
Boromir's not like, no,
like in the basic superficial stuff that everyone else gets to see, Denethor sees Boromir similar to like
Faramir
the man's
is
man
much
kind
more
of thing.
like Aragorn. Boromir is much less cunning, much more manipulatable. And so Denethor, because Boromir is actually not like him, he begins to use Boromir a lot more than Faramir.
And so Denethor appreciates Boromir only because he's a tool?
Yes. And that part of the portrayal is done really, really well in that Boromir flashback, where you get to see Boromir triumph, and then his head is always down when he's
Which is why he
father.
doesn't send Faramir, is because he knows that Faramir has a mind of his own.
Exactly.
Boromir does not.
Right. And one of the fears of Denethor in the books is that Faramir would usurp him.
Yes.
Yeah. And so it's see these complex relationships that Tolkien built. And so
it's so good.
So yeah, but that's one of the things they flipped in the film, because they wanted that idea of the father treats the one that's more like him, right? It is more like kind of I want to use you more than the other one, right? More than the one that's different. And it works with this kind of characterization because the film, again, it has to do things differently than the book.
Interesting.
And so, yeah. So the words that Boromir uses...
I need to go reread the books again. I haven't read them in
books are really good.
A few years.
So the words that Denethor uses, right? It is a gift, right? Bring it back to our city. It is the blood of our people that are being spent. All those words Boromir repeats.
Quoted.
Yeah, in Council of
Council of
Elrond.
Elrond,
So
yeah.
it's brainwashing. And so as he's traveling with the Fellowship, he's beginning to break out of that brainwashing.
But it's still there, as evidenced by his ability to be consumed by the ring.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what is... to
And
me,
it's
at
tragic.
least, it's tragic, but it's a magnificent look at that character.
And the fact that he still kind of hates himself for giving into that, because he's finally broken out of it enough to recognize, like, wait a second, that's not... And so, like, you can see him working with Aragorn instead of working against Aragorn.
There are plenty of times when they work together.
Yeah.
Right? And then so there's that moment where Aragorn rescues Boromir, like when they're in the cave, right? They're fighting, and then Boromir gets slammed into the wall by the cave troll, and he's about to get... stabbed by an orc, and Aragorn throws that thing, and they recognize each other, like, hey, you helped me.
Like, thanks, dude.
Yeah, thanks, dude.
Thanks, bro.
Right, and so Boromir begins to understand, hey, Aragorn is this good person, right?
Yeah.
And then Boromir is actually the one that's more empathetic than Aragorn.
Yes.
Right?
Well, and that's why it comes, again, like, one of the quotes that I did a few episodes ago is the idea that, like, angry people are some of the most caring people.
Oh,
and
right.
it's because they're so vulnerable and they allow their boundaries to just, like, they're not able to just not contain their anger, but they don't know how to manage it. No one's taught them how. And so instead of using it as a governing force of, like, okay, here's how it is used to protect, which Boromir is an extremely protective force. Because he hasn't been taught how to really use it, though probably he knows better than most people today, it's still something where it rages. And he's furious that Aragorn won't let him save his people. He's furious that the hobbits don't know how to take care of themselves. He's furious that they're on this quest to destroy this thing that might possibly save everyone. Like, and he's so angry, and it's because he cares. Versus Aragorn is kind of an indifferent, like, butt face, like, for the first movie. Like, he doesn't really...
I disagree.
I'm curious what your interpretation is, but at the moment... And it's something where, like, I had a different view. I thought that Aragorn was more caring and this, that, and the other. And then as I got older, it's like he's kind of shoving his feelings down or shoving his feelings in.
I agree with that.
He's repressing more versus Boromir is expressing more. And so both of them hurt.
Well, Boromir is definitely more
way.
empathic, right? And we get to see the good and bad sides of that. We get the good side is when it's the Faramir flashback.
Yeah, he's protecting Faramir.
Right, he's protecting Faramir. He's furious with his father for not seeing Faramir as a clearly great soldier and general and captain.
Which is really funny because based on your description, Denethor absolutely knows.
Yes.
He's just completely he's paying attention to it. It's not that he's ignoring it. He's making it obvious that he's ignoring it so he can really keep an eye on it.
Yeah. One of the things that they did in the films is they had to change the character of Faramir.
They did.
Like, they had to. And
because it doesn't, unless you read all the books and study it, it doesn't make sense why, like, for example, in the book, he doesn't even get really tempted. He's like, nope, that's too powerful. I don't want the ring. We're good.
Right. So,
and nobody else does that except for him.
But yeah, that's actually one of the triumphs of the books, right? But because of the way the film is trying to, the story this film is trying to do, they had to change his characterization. And so
he had to also be a man just like everyone else. Well, kind of.
Yes,
Yeah.
kind of, right? They do give him his victory arc, which is really great. Right?
Oh, yeah. He lets them go. It's fantastic.
Right. Yeah. And so it's but the way that they had to do Faramir was different because of the depth of detail that you would have to go to do his character properly. Right? It's just not possible to do that in even an 11-hour film. And so
So good.
yeah. But yeah, Boromir
But yeah.
is
And so,
much more empathic with Faramir, right?
Yeah.
And then that's the good side. But then the bad side, when they leave Moria, right? He goes, give them a moment for pity's sake. But Aragorn's like, no, we gotta, yeah.
And
leg it.
someone pointed out that Legolas is kind of Boromir's opposite with that, which is weird. And you might have something else to say because he has kind of seen it. But Legolas hasn't really experienced a whole heck of a lot of war. Like he has, but not near as much as some of his relatives. And so it's something where human. I guess mortal sensibilities about death are different than immortal sensibilities.
Yeah.
And so you see Boromir is like, give them a moment for pity's sake. And Legolas is like, Aragorn talks to Legolas first, is like, Legolas, Gimli, get them up. And it's something where Legolas is looking around and he sees the effect that it has on the company.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I love the way that they had Orlando Bloom portray that because it's just Legolas is a little
kind of
bit
his lack of understanding.
Right, he doesn't really understand what's going on, and you can see in his face, but you can see also the grief also is
like he's
also
still
there,
sad,
right?
but it's different.
Yeah.
So, and it's also like kind of like how Legolas and Gimli are not quite darker, but they've been in battle versus the hobbits like Merry and Pippin. They have not. They totally have not. And so it's something where that optimism is tapered with experience. And so with Legolas, it's really interesting to watch how that goes through, how that plays out, and he does get more attached.
Yeah.
He brings Gimli with him to the Grey Havens. I don't think they show that in.
No, they don't have it.
They don't show it in the movies, but
I mean, you get their friendship.
He sneaks a dwarf in because he's so attached.
Right. Yeah.
Dwarves are not supposed to go there.
Well, dwarves never had the opportunity, right?
I guess.
Because they weren't designed by.
I just realized Gimli gets to like fangirl about Galadriel for the rest of his life.
I don't know if. I just.
What if he's like the cat that just brings you gifts, and so he's constantly bringing like random things that he spent like 3 days carving to Galadriel, just like, here is this stool for your gorgeous feet. Thank you for existing in this world as a light and a beacon to the universe. And then comes back later and is like, here's a comb for your golden hair. Feel free to like give me the strands that it pulls out if you needed to, but it's so smooth that like you're good.
I'm not sure I like that.
I like it. And Legolas is like, that's my dumb best friend. Good stuff.
So yeah.
Anyway,
I really like Boromir's character.
Yes.
His character is, I mean, his main desire is for the glory of Gondor to be restored. Right. That's actually the thing that drives him the most, and it's like
because everything will be better if the glory of Gondor is restored.
Right. That's how he he thinks, and so. You know, his every whim for like asking Aragorn to come to Minas Tirith, wanting the ring to come to Minas Tirith, all these different things is he wants to see the glory of Gondor restored.
And one of the best things is the fact that because of him, it is. His death, Aragorn was able to go, and his life and his death. With that, Aragorn is able to have that extra bit of compassion for Gondor because previously he didn't. He was more elf than man at that point. When Boromir's dying, he had his sympathies were way more elfin about elvish.
The character that I want to do is Aragorn actually, right?
Yeah.
And so this makes what you're saying makes a really interesting segue to it because I used to think Aragorn was really aloof, and I thought that was just kind of his characterization. But
one of the elves.
But this time going through, I feel like there's a lot more subtlety to both the written way or the way the character was written
and the
way that Viggo Mortensen acts out the character. And so
also just really quick little like bow to Viggo Mortensen who brought so much to this character.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something like happened to him. And I was like, what?
No.
God forbid.
God grant Viggo Mortensen many long years. Hopefully he dies after I do.
Many cats' lives.
Yes.
Anyways.
Anyway.
So, Oh man, my train of thought.
Sorry.
What were you saying about Boromir?
Nope, we were talking about empaths. No, we were talking about Glory to Gondor, and then how Aragorn was, in my opinion, more elvish than man because of that.
So Boromir really wants the glory of Gondor to be restored.
Yeah.
That's actually within the very first scene.
Yeah.
And the very first scene is actually them in opposition.
Yes.
And so they're sitting there by the shards of Narsil. Boromir comes in and he's like wowed by the painting and all this like
then
ancient legends kind of thing, right?
Like a dummy.
Well, yeah.
To be fair, I have also genuinely done the same exact thing. Like my mom had just bought like a brand new knife and I was like, that doesn't look that sharp. So what did I do? I ran my thumb over the edge of the blade. It started bleeding and I was like, oh, it is that sharp. Cool.
Yeah.
So
but I mean, for Boromir, it was also like, this is a piece of
dumb.
history. This is a piece of my history. Right,
but he stabbed him again. Sorry, really relatable. But like, I still think that it was really dumb that I did that. So it was really dumb for me that he did that. Sorry, continue.
But wouldn't you rather stub your toe on a piece of history rather than some random knife?
Maybe.
Right.
But then he drops it and doesn't go back for it. And I'm just like, I understand the like shame, but also like someone absolutely and definitively saw you. Please go put it back. So like just all the years of customer service is just like, you horrible person.
So it was his kind of like, how do you say this?
Wait, Boromir or Aragorn?
It's more like he's embarrassed about his like approach to the whole thing, right? And it's like, and it's also as if he's been programmed by Denethor to disavow the past. Because what is the past? Well, the steward is only a steward of the throne, not the ruler of Gondor, right? So it's like he's been programmed, and so when he sees a man, right, he goes, oh, I shouldn't be, whatever, right? I shouldn't be showing this kind of thing. So he drops it, leaves, right? And they stand in opposition because then Aragorn comes in and puts the sword back onto the what is that called?
I'm calling it a Solia, but it's not.
What's a Solia?
It's related to an altar, and so I'm pretty sure it's wrong.
Okay, all right, the altar, the
It's
shrine.
the first thing that came up.
The shrine, and so that's they're actually set in film in opposition to one another, right? But so Aragorn is in a sense more elvish than he is man because he's hung out and grown up in Rivendell.
Literally been raised by them.
Right. And he's experienced the wild in the world. He's actually gone down to Rohan, which is mentioned in the film. He's gone down to Gondor.
With Theoden's grandfather?
No.
Father. Okay. I couldn't remember.
It's okay. So because it's Eowyn's grandfather.
There we go.
Yeah.
I was like, it's somebody's grandfather.
And so Aragorn's been around, right? But he's still kind of more elvish. But he's grown on these tales of the weakness of man, right? The
frailty
lust
of man, all
to
of this stuff.
right, all these things that Elrond has been telling him over all these years.
Typical good Catholic, Roman Catholic.
And it's not like wrong. I mean, it's kind of true, right?
It's only kind of true though, because there's like what Boromir says, like there's strength also. Like it you can't just take away. Like, if you were to go and look at the history of the world, yeah, you'd see war and you'd see a bunch of idiots and a bunch of really pretentious people who are making decisions and using other people as if they're disposable. But if you look and talk to people about their personal history, you find all the little things. You find all the little bits and pieces, which is why hobbits are important, is because you have those little things are treasured. And so it's something where I guess Aragorn doesn't really see the little things until later, in my opinion.
So I think... I would say this as like Aragorn. The question that is presented to Aragorn is not whether men are weak and men only desire power, but what does that mean, right? In the typical kind of elven framework, men are weak as in they always give into temptation. Men are always giving into the desire for power, right? But what is power, right? In that elven conception, it's this idea of oppressive authority. It's this idea of I have a lot of strength, I have a lot of honor, whatever it is, right? But the idea of the Lord of the Rings that I really appreciate about the thread that they did with this film is that Aragorn redefines that. Aragorn redefines the weakness of man. Aragorn redefines the power that men desire. And it's done in a very, very, very subtle way. So much so that I didn't realize it for the past however many years until now when I watched it and I was trying to pay attention to Aragorn because I've never really paid attention to him until now. And so that's my character, by the way, guys. I'm doing Aragorn.
The funny part where I did it. Okay, so really, really quick. One of the problems was, so Isaac was like, hey, let's pick like 2 characters each and do this, that, and the other. Like, all right, cool. And I was like, all right, like I'm going to do like Boromir and this other person. And then like I started watching him and then I'm like, wait a second, I'm falling in love with them all again. Wait, I might need to change it. I'm sorry. And so it was something where with one of the ones that I paid a little bit more attention to was Aragorn. And so it was really interesting because there were things that I noticed that I was like, how have I never noticed this before?
Yeah, like Aragorn is primarily he's so the theme I have for Aragorn that I realized for him is the theme of self-denial. Right?
Yes.
And there's a negative version of it, which is self-doubt, right? Which he has a lot of, which he has to grow out of. And so Aragorn in the films actually has a character arc, whereas Aragorn in the books, his character arc was basically completed before you even read it. And so that's kind of the difference here. But
which
of course,
is why the movies are actually impressive.
Right.
About that specifically.
Right, because they had to go, okay, we can't just have a character that doesn't grow.
He'd be a Mary Sue.
Yeah,
a very beautiful and rugged Mary Sue.
Right. So they wanted to write something a little bit more complex, but also bring in what Tolkien himself described as essential to the plot, which is the tale of Aragorn and Arwen. Right?
Yes.
And so when you go into the appendices of Lord of the Rings, the full story is actually there. Right. And so they wanted to bring that in.
Yeah.
And so Aragorn is kind of like this look at self-denial. But there's a good way and a bad way, right? But then the motivation of his character is his love for Arwen.
Okay. Explain. Explain.
So what we have in it's very, very. It's just so well done.
You can't see this, but my shoulders are kind of near. One of my shoulders is like near my ear right now because I'm just like I'm cringing because that doesn't feel right.
Yeah, I know it doesn't because it sounds very weird, right? So
it almost makes him one note. That's why I'm like it's not just his love for.
No. I'm saying
Arwen.
his primary motivation is Arwen, and that motivation is not the thing that carries him through. Which makes it really fascinating.
Okay.
Right. And so, I have to do this. So Aragorn, at the beginning of Fellowship, is this ranger, and then when the Fellowship leaves the council or it leaves Rivendell, he is the one in the back. Right.
Yes.
By the time we get to the end of Return of the King, he's the one in the front.
Yes.
He's the one that comes up with the strategies. He's the one that Gandalf depends on. He's the one that is king. So what is that journey that he takes, right? Because again, he goes, okay, men are weak, right? Men are desperate for power. I don't like men. I don't like me in that aspect. I have never wanted that power, right? But
I'm now irritated because Aragorn is very relatable. That's irritating. Okay.
Well, they're all relatable.
Well,
That's what's so great about this.
Hey, Aragorn is like perfect in my mind. Okay, like yes, his character arc is there as well. So like clearly he's less perfect in the beginning of the movies than he is at the end. But like I'm so like it just that.
This is the description of the Return of the King.
I know,
right?
But I'm just like. Just referring to self-doubt, I'm like, fine. Sorry.
Right.
Please continue.
So the flashbacks with Arwen are done very, very purposefully.
Yes.
But you have to think of them in chronological order.
Yes.
So what Aragorn immediately sees in Boromir is everything he hates about himself. Right?
Yes.
The weakness of man, the arrogance of man, the power that man craves. Everything that he sees in Boromir is that, and he hates it. Like
shadow work.
What?
Shadow work? Shadow like you're like the human shadow. So the idea is like when you see something you hate in someone else, it's usually because you either like you've gotten rid of that part of yourself. So like like usually before the age of like 5, you were like, okay, I can't be angry because angry means that people don't like me, which means that I don't make people happy, which means that it's this big problem thing. So you stuff anger essentially away. And so then when you see someone else being angry, you hate it because you aren't able to experience that. You haven't let yourself experience. This is a very rudimentary, very like, please, if you want to go look up shadow work, please go look it up yourself. But for this purpose, the idea is like when he looks at Boromir, he sees everything that he has tried to shove away in himself, everything that he has repressed, everything that he has said, like, I can't be like this.
And
he
Boromir
sees that
actually
and
calls
he
him out
hates
on it.
Yeah.
Boromir actually calls him out on it.
Like,
He's
you are
like,
one of us.
You are afraid of yourself.
Yes.
You know, I have the quote in here.
Ooh.
Oh man.
Quote.
Do I have the quote in here?
Do you?
I think
Do you have the quote?
I'm not sure anymore.
Things
It's
that
actually
are...
I have 7,000 words in here. I do have it in here.
Things that are. Things that have not yet come to pass.
So Aragorn, everything that Boromir is, he hates, right?
Yes.
Everything Arwen is, he loves. Because
Yes.
what? Arwen is what? She's an elf, right?
She's beautiful.
She's beautiful,
Yeah.
right? And she's
also wise beyond
yes,
her years.
She's omniscient almost, right?
Yes.
The way that they portray her.
Yes.
And so she is everything that he wants. And so he, of course, idealizes her, but he's also romantically attached to her.
Yes.
Right? And they made the promise, and it's actually in the film, right? They made the promise of their betrothal. Yeah.
Their love.
Right. And so she is everything that he wants to have and be with, right?
Yes.
Boromir is everything that he hates, right? But Arwen knows that Aragorn's destiny is to be king, right? And so but he keeps denying that part of himself. And so when Elrond confronts a little bit selfishly, but when Elrond, not a little bit, very selfishly, when Elrond confronts Aragorn,
Leave my daughter alone.
Let my daughter go to the
Grey Havens.
The Grey Havens,
Yeah.
right?
That's
he
basically
goes,
what he says.
He goes, okay, like, I guess, you know, this is, I hate myself, and so I'm going to.
I don't deserve her.
Right, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Right? And he tries to leave without her knowing, right? And then she's like,
He
what are
tries
you
to leave
doing?
without her knowing?
Yeah. Right? And she like confronts him and she's like, you think you can just escape me? And he's
Pretty
like,
much.
oh, wow. Right? And he gives like the lamest excuse, right? It's like, you're elf kind, I am mortal. We're not meant to be together. And it's just like, she calls him out.
Much.
She calls him out. She's like, I don't believe you. Like, because he's like, yeah.
And it's one of the things that I love that this is gonna sound really racist, I'm so sorry, but you're Asian, so you would get this. With the languages,
get it
they
at all.
start I haven't said it yet. With elves, what they do is they have like they speak in like Sindarin. Yeah.
I'm not sure if they did
the main
Sindarin or Kenyan yet. I'm not sure
Anyway,
which one it
there
is.
is an elf language,
Or
okay?
Nolgorian.
The elves speak a language.
There are 3 elven languages.
That's not surprising because Tolkien is amazing. He's a crafty, brilliant, insane, amazing genius.
Gosh, Tolkien. Only 3 languages? How dare you?
Well, no, because he did
It's a joke.
Dwarvish, and
Yes,
there's
I
at least
know.
like 6.
There's a lot of languages.
Yeah, he's
There's a lot of
brilliant.
languages.
Again, created a universe.
Black speech, Dwarvish, Entish.
I actually
3
tried
languages.
creating. I think everyone who's read Lord of the Rings has tried creating their own language.
Yeah.
Same thing with like Artemis Fowl. Like you've always tried to like anyway. So, but point is there was a point. Languages. Okay, so when she's being intimate, when they're being intimate, when elves are having an intimate moment, they use Elvish.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Versus when it gets broken, they're like, hey, in English. They're like, or common tongue, they're like, hey, what the heck? So when they're like, she's being all intimate with him, like, hey, like, I love you, this, that, and the other. And he's like, you are elf kind, I am mortal. And she's like, what the like, what do you mean? And it's just that
Right.
softness
This has
is
never
broken.
come up before.
Yeah, and so it's something where I love that with these movies, and what the reason I said Asian is because of the fact that like a lot of Asian cultures do this, where you have like
right.
your
When we get
personal
angry, we're just
tongue.
like cussing you out in our own language.
And same thing. Well, same thing when there's softness. Like when you're well, okay. The thing coming to mind is gossip, but that's the stereotypical one. But like when you're communicating things that are a little bit more personal, you'll use your personal language, and then when it's a little bit more normal, you'll use the common tongue. You'll use English and so it's something where like it has been commented on that like people that speak English as their first language don't really have a hidden tongue, and so we wear our hearts on our sleeves. We have a lot of things that aren't hidden about ourselves because it's represented in our language. And Tolkien 100% was behind this kind of thing of your language represents a little bit of who you are. It forms your being. They talk about it in Arrival. This is a very, very common thing. And so I love that with these movies, when you have those moments between Aragorn and the elves, or even with other elves, you have these moments of peace and tranquility. And then when something is irritable or something is a problem, they'll speak common. common
Right.
tongue, and then go back and forth.
So with Aragorn, right? So he leaves on
Yeah.
that note.
Yeah.
Right. He leaves in the note of self-doubt, kind of self-hatred,
Yeah.
almost, and he leaves with the idea of I'm never going to see my love
Arwen
again.
is crying.
Right. And so
Literally
that's the
tearing
scene.
up.
That's the
It's
scene,
ridiculous.
right? Their last look at each other, she was like, she didn't have a look of hope. She was just like, what is going on here, right? And he
She's
has
like,
that,
I can't believe you.
right? And so he leaves, right? And he's always in the back of the Fellowship. He's always there, right? And as they move forward,
No one till Lothlorien.
well, that's
When
because he
Gandalf.
had to.
Oh, okay.
Right?
That makes sense.
Right?
Okay,
He-
with a have to.
It wasn't a.
Because I'm like, Gandalf's did.
he didn't volunteer for it.
No.
He had to.
Because
right?
he was the only one capable of doing
right.
that.
And he was the only one that knew the land.
I wonder if he wished that Boromir would have done that. Maybe that's part of the reason.
Boromir can't go into Lothlorien.
No, Boromir actively fought against going into
Right.
Lothlorien.
Yeah.
I'm
Crazy witch
saying,
lady
like,
is there.
like Aragorn might have wished that Boromir could lead instead of him. I'm curious.
I don't think so. I think they were in such trauma. They were just like, okay, we got to do this, right?
Yeah.
So Aragorn is thrust into this leadership
just
capacity,
knows.
and everything he does fails, right?
Yeah.
Everything he does after Lothlorien, everything he does fails, right? They
Yes.
they get to the river, right? They're ambushed by orcs. The Fellowship breaks, right?
Yeah.
They go chase Merry and Pippin
don't
Pippin get captured.
And
they don't
Gandalf
find.
says them. It's
Right.
not.
It's not Aragorn. They go to Helm's Deep,
Rohan.
and it's not Aragorn that rescues them at Helm's Deep. Almost everything that Aragorn does fails, right? As a leader, right? Which is fascinating, right? Helm's Deep is kind of
Well,
a caveat.
I don't think he ever really succeeds because even with Mordor and that battle in Return of the King, he still doesn't really succeed. It's a doomed thing. They're just fighting for Frodo. So Frodo's the reason why Frodo and Gollum are the reason why it succeeds anyways.
So it is through his failures that Aragorn is learning what it is to be a king, right?
Well, it's kind of that's human beings. Through your
right.
failures, you learn what it is to be human.
Yes, that's his journey, right? Which is a beautiful journey, right? He keeps saying Helm's Deep is a little bit of both, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But he keeps on failing, right? And so like I think it's Galadriel or Gandalf. One of them says like Sauron fears what you may become. You don't know. You're thinking of something.
Because my brain is telling me either Gandalf or Elrond said that.
You might be right. It's one of those. It's one of those wise folk.
But if you and I both agree that Gandalf is an option, then it's probably Gandalf.
It's probably Gandalf.
It's probably. Oh, because he's in white. He's Gandalf the White when he says it, right? Yeah, and it's in
He
Two
might be.
Towers. It's in Two Towers, and I'm pretty sure Gandalf's the one who says it. He's like, Sauron fears what you may become.
Right.
I'm pretty sure it's
Yeah.
Gandalf.
So
Gandalf the
what-
White.
Yeah. Right. So in his in Fellowship, it's the ultimate failure, right? Boromir dies, Fellowship is broken, and Merry and Pippin are captured.
Yep.
Right. And
Ultimate failure.
in that moment, he decides, I'm going to lead no matter what.
Ironically, him and Boromir fail.
Yes.
So that is actually one of the things.
Yeah.
So it proves his point of men are weak and men fail. And
Yes.
so instead of that, he still continues to push
But
forward.
he accepts that.
Yes.
That's the message of Fellowship
Yes.
that Aragorn has. It's I have finally. It's not anymore that I want to get away from it. It's I have accepted it. I have accepted this as part of my character.
Yeah.
Right. And so, at the end there, when we were talking about when Frodo and Aragorn are talking to each other, and Frodo's like, Frodo backs away from Aragorn, and he's like, "Wait, what are you doing? I swore to protect you, right?" And I have this quote here.
I swore an oath to protect
Yeah,
you.
I swore an oath to protect you. And then Frodo's like, "No, can you protect me from yourself?" And then he has the ring there, and
Yeah.
that music, that
And then you
temptation
can hear
of the
it
ring comes
say
out.
like, son of Elisar. Does it say that?
It just says Elisar, I'm pretty sure, but I might be wrong.
Maybe.
And so, and it said, "Would you?" And Frodo asked the question, "Would you destroy it?" And then Aragorn comes, closes
Would you
his
take
hand.
it? Would you destroy it? Yeah.
Right. He closes his hand and goes, "I would have gone with you to the end, to the very fires of Mordor." That's an acceptance speech of Aragorn. It sounds ambiguous, but he's going, "Yeah, I would have gone with you to the end, but I know this temptation is too much for me. I would probably have gone to the end and killed you
failed.
and failed so badly." Right. And that's accepted. Right. And then he goes, "Go." Right. Like, I can't do this anymore. I accept that. You have to leave.
I will
right?
defend and protect you as
Right.
you run away.
Right, exactly. And so acknowledgement of his own weakness, and that's the end, right? That's the Fellowship arc for
And then he
for Aragorn.
fails to rescue Boromir as well. So it's a
Yes.
continuing, like, he doesn't even save. He defends Frodo. Frodo's able to get away, but that's the only thing that succeeds. The funny part where he doesn't succeed because Frodo's all like, take care of Sam for me. No, Sam ends up going with him too. So like the only thing he's able to do is protect Frodo as he leaves.
But kind of not really. Frodo could have put on the ring and run. Right?
Yeah, so he wasn't
And
really
that is what happens in the books.
important to him. And hobbits are fast and
Yeah.
slight,
And
so
silent.
he probably could have run away from the orcs too.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Aragorn really is a weak failure at the end of
Yeah.
Fellowship, right? And then
Then he's a stronger, weaker failure.
yes, but it's accepted that.
Yeah.
It's accepting of that, right?
It's like when you work out and you're a horrible, weak failure monster who
bench.
can only do like 2 push-ups. Like, all right, cool. I did 5 actual push-ups the other day.
wow.
I was so proud of myself. Okay, I hadn't done them before. Anyway, point was, and then so I did 5 push-ups. Maybe in like a few weeks I'll be able to do like 20 push-ups. That's still only 20 push-ups. It's still kind of pathetic. And so with Aragorn, that's kind of his character, is it's constantly growing, constantly weak, constantly failing, but you're failing forward.
Yeah. And so in Fellowship, Boromir is the foil for Aragorn.
Yeah.
In Return of the King, it's Theoden.
Yes.
And so Aragorn.
Wait, you mean Two Towers?
Sorry, Two Towers.
There we
That's my
go.
fault. Sorry. So in Two Towers, Aragorn, quote unquote, meets Theoden. Of course, we know that Theoden actually met each other a long time ago when Theoden was a child.
Tiny baby.
Right, and Aragorn actually, it bothered me for a really long time that Aragorn stopped Theoden from murdering Wormtongue because like, what are you doing? And then the realization, oh wait, Theoden knows Aragorn. Like he not only like he has seen Aragorn before, but he also looks up to Aragorn, right? And so that's
Wait. So why were you confused? So you
because
had a
Aragorn is
thing-
not a king of Rohan.
So it was weird that Aragorn stopped him,
Yes.
not that you wanted Wormtongue
of
to
course.
die.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just like, but it made sense why he doesn't kill him in front of all his people, and that's like the first sane act he does is to kill someone in front of all of his people.
Well, right, but in my head, it was Aragorn shouldn't have been doing that. It might
Because
have
he's
been
not
Gandalf,
important enough.
right?
Why? Yeah.
But actually, Theoden knows Aragorn, right, from his
They
childhood.
had a relationship.
Right. And so,
Okay.
and if you look at their relationship in the entire Two Towers, it's actually brother-brother relationship.
Yes.
Right. Theoden actually goes to Aragorn not for advice, but like
Well,
consults
it is kind of
with
like
him and
older
talks
brother
to him.
because it's something where Theoden also doesn't listen to Aragorn when Aragorn tells him like, "Hey, you should do this thing." Theoden's like,
Right.
no, older brother, I can do this on my own."
Well, Theoden's
kind of
reaction
thing.
to Aragorn and Gandalf is the fact that he's trying to react against what he did with Wormtongue, right?
Yeah.
That was part of his arc in Two Towers, right?
Especially because you could see it when Gandalf like leans in and touches the
Right,
chair. He
yeah, yeah.
looks down
He's
at the
like,
hand and he's like,
I remember that.
what are like, oh no, is this a new spell? Like,
Right,
what is
exactly.
this? And he's like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can't listen to what they say.
Right,
and it's
exactly.
just like,
Yeah, but they're completely different, right? And so that's part of
No.
Theoden's arc, right? But
good stuff.
But when they're traveling, right,
stuff.
Theoden tells Aragorn about Eowyn's past, right?
yes.
Why would a king tell him that? Well, actually, they know each other.
Yeah.
Right. They're
So
actually
it's like
quite
telling your
close.
older brother about like your niece.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not super close, but just in terms of
Yeah.
like Theoden understands who Aragorn is.
Yeah.
And remembers him riding.
Like
with his
I have
father.
family friends that just randomly tell me about random cousins that they know, and I'm like, I don't know your cousins. Why are you telling me this? But it's because they care about them and they're sharing this information, not because I need to know this information, but because they just want to share. And
Right.
so, yeah, Theoden's just sharing about his.
And then through the arc of Two Towers, Aragorn is learning I can lead by inspiration.
Yes.
Right. And he's the one that I can lead by support. I can lead by inspiration.
Yes.
Right. And so his whole thing with Theoden.
He doesn't have to be at the helm.
So, but that's his arc.
Yeah.
Right. And Aragorn leads. Oh, sorry. Aragorn is supporting of Theoden. Theoden starts to get into despair
Yeah.
by the end of Two Towers. He's like, so
He's
much
like, is this
death.
the end of men? man?
What can men do against such reckless hate? Right.
Yes.
And I'm going to contrast this later, but what Aragorn does is not say you should not be in despair.
Yeah.
What he does is say, okay, yes, we are going to die. Let's die with glory.
Yes.
Right?
Let's die with honor and.
Right? And that's Theoden's heart. right?
Yeah.
Aragorn understood that it's not about death that Theoden was whatever. It was like dying in this hole.
Cage.
Right? Yeah.
Kind of like Éowyn.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Éowyn gets it from somewhere.
Right. And so it's that kind of
Also,
understanding
one of
that
the things
Aragorn
that I
has.
realized is Éomer knows Boromir. A random fun fact of just like, and it makes sense, but yeah, Éomer knows, I'm pretty sure it was Boromir and Faramir, but like, yeah, like they know each other.
Yeah.
Éomer loves Boromir, and so something where it was amusing to me because then you have Theoden who loves Aragorn as like, whoa, dude, and then now you're here and you're fighting side by side.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, in that moment, it's like, let's draw swords together.
Right. Let this be the hour
Holds
where
up
we draw
picture
swords
of
together,
swords.
right? And that was Aragorn understanding the heart of a king, the heart of Theoden, and affirming that, and then letting that king make his decision about how he wants to do it, right?
Yes.
That's the kingly Aragorn.
Well, that's what you do as an advisor.
Yeah. Yeah. Right? So before Aragorn was like war is coming to you, blah, 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 right? And Theoden was like super offended, right?
Yeah.
And then Aragorn realizes, oh, I shouldn't be speaking like this. He's a king, right? And so he's learning through this whole thing how to be a support, right? And so
like Theoden has already thought of the stuff that Aragorn was telling him. Yeah. But he didn't want to do that because it seemed like a coward's way out kind of thing. Or not maybe cowardly, but it didn't have that glory. It didn't have that honor. It didn't have that reward of being a legend, being remembered for wisdom and
for
stuff.
death and glory.
Yeah,
right?
And so it's something where later on Aragorn's able to understand and recognize that it's a different motivation.
Yeah, and it's
good
great,
king.
right? And so when they ride out, right? They ride out and they slaughter all these orcs, and then Gandalf comes. In beginning of the Return of the King, Saruman, I mean, like his words are so so evil, but he actually he pinpoints the problem that Theoden has, right? Which is what is the house of I can't believe I don't remember this right now, but it's something like this, right? What is the house of Rohan except a thatched barn with brigands that drink, right? You guys are nothing. You will never attain to Theoden. You will never attain to. You are the lesser of your sires, right? Yeah. And it hits Theoden hard, right? And you can see it as
that's in Return of the King. Is at the beginning when
when they're confronting Saruman,
in the tower.
Right? And so, but he understands that.
Well, he also had someone like whispering in his ear, and he was in control of his mind for like years.
Well, he understands that it was not. He says this. It was not Theoden of Rohan that led our people to victory.
Yeah.
Right. And he knows, and Éowyn knows it was actually Aragorn because Aragorn was the one that was beside him to push him forward. Right.
See, but Theoden also had to make the choice, so it was still Theoden. But yeah, you can portray it that way
right.
too.
Yeah. So you have that duality of that king. The accusation from Saruman is it's like grain of truth kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
something to needle him.
So Aragorn has come from accepting his weakness, learning to be the support, right? And that's the king. So what is his lesson in Return of the King? Well, he's learned what it is to be a support in a kingly way.
How to accept the support of others.
Well, how to lead himself now. He has to lead himself now, right? He goes from going from the back to kind of the middle in support, and now to the front, right? Where, and again in the beginning, like Gandalf's like, you must come by another road, right? Elrond comes and finally gives him the sword because Aragorn realizes I have to fulfill this destiny of mine, right? And so he goes through the paths of the
what's it called?
Dead.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. The paths.
I was like,
dead.
You led it up to it. I'm like, is there an Elvish word for it that I'm not remembering right now? No, it's just the way of the dead.
Yeah. And what does the king have to do? They have to die. Right? And so he has to go through the paths of the dead, right? He goes, and right before he enters, he says, what? I do not fear death. Yeah. Right? He goes in to the paths of the dead, right? It's kind of metaphorical, symbolic kind of thing, right? And he commands the army of the dead, right? He has now the honor and the ability to command the dead, right? So it's this question of who is worthy, who is honorable, who can sit on that throne. It's not someone who has...
Also, that is such an amazing scene.
Yeah.
With the dead people and then like the boats and just,
You need to see it in the 4K HD because they recolor it and it's beautiful.
So amazing.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
And so he goes through death, strips himself of the rest of it, right? And comes out the other side, commands the army of the dead, and goes back to retake his city, right? In another way, not the main way, right? Not the main way that he's expected. And so, and then when he's honored his word with the dead, he is king in a city, right? And Gandalf, who was his advisor, now goes to him for advice, right? And Aragorn becomes the lead. Right? And so it's that journey of accepting your weakness, accepting what's up, right? But not going, okay, now let me go blah 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 whatever, because at that point of self-acceptance you're not really gonna try to do anything, right? And so you go into that support role, right? And you learn to affirm, you learn to encourage, you learn to be a man, but not in a I am lord over you, right? Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Sorry, that was a slight nod.
Right. So I'm not lord over you.
Yeah.
I'm lord with you. I'm lord supporting you, right? And then
Well, and all good leaders do that, and so it's something where like I've been aiming for managerial type leadership positions over the last few years. And it's something where that is one of the things that I've absolutely learned as I've studied and put into practice the things that I've studied is the fact that the best leaders are supportive. They're not like, I have this power, I'm going to go do these things, and you have to do this because I said so. That's horrible parenting, and that is horrible leadership. It's more along the lines of, here is what we're going to be doing, and here's why it benefits you, you do the benefits first so that we're able to show them, and you make the people that are there with you want it too, or you show it in a way that...
I wouldn't say that. I mean, at least in Aragorn's arc, it's more like I will affirm who you are,
yes,
and kind of let you decide what you're going to do when we do that, right? And so Aragorn is like with Theoden. He's like, let's ride out and meet them, right?
Well, but in that position, Theoden was supposed to be the leader. Aragorn is not the leader in that one, no matter what they said afterwards. Yeah. And so it's something where I'm talking more like in Return of the King.
Oh, okay.
When he's in king mode, when he's in leader mode, he is the leader.
Well,
he's able to draw everything together.
Finished. Oh man, sorry. My bad. That was really my bad. Whoa. So he learns to die, right? He learns to lead. He learns to die and then lead the army of the dead, because the realization is from the story of the Two Towers, your kingship is not about you.
Yes.
Right. And so your kingship, right? He goes, and that's his almost last line before they go charging into it, is for Frodo, right? So that we can become a distraction, right? It's not even for him anymore.
Them.
Yeah, right. And so it's the purpose of that kingship is not for yourself.
It's like a 2-word thing, but like just the heart.
Yeah.
The heart of that just.
But he had to learn that, right? He had to learn that. He had to accept who he was, right? He had to learn to not command like typical command, but to affirm and support and encourage.
It is not this day.
Right? And then in that, he learns it's not about me. My kingship is not about me.
Yeah.
Right? Like, as Gimli said, like, these guys are really handy. You should keep them around, right? But it's not about him, right? It's not about their victory. It's about honor, right? Honoring the dead, right? And then you have, of course, Gandalf comes to him for advice. And then he goes, but we can create a distraction for Frodo, right?
Yeah.
And everything in him at the end of the thing is like, I will not believe that Frodo is dead, right? And then in the end, for Frodo, right? And then they just go and charge in. And that's the Return of the King, right?
Oof.
It is an awesome storyline.
So
halfway through, he thinks that Arwen is dead.
Oh, yeah!
Yeah.
Oh,
I forgot to mention that.
Doesn't he see her and she's dying?
Yeah. Or he has a dream of her and she's dying. And then when he's looking at the Palantir, Sauron shows her dead. So
that's not in the movies.
So takes all the motivation, right? Everything out.
That isn't in the movies, right?
That is in the movies. Yeah.
Is that when he like holds it and falls over?
No. He's holding he doesn't fall over. I think he
No,
drops the palantir and he drops the necklace at the same time. Yeah. So Gandalf goes up to he proposes the distraction.
That was a dream. I'm so confused.
So no, that wasn't a dream when he looked at the palantir. Right. So Gandalf proposes. He proposes the distraction. Gandalf goes, Sauron will not take the distraction. He will think it's bait. And Aragorn goes, no, I think he will. And then he goes and takes the palantir and talks to Sauron. He goes, "You have
like I'm coming
too
for you
long.
kind of
Too long have I eluded you? Too long have you hunted me?" Right. And he shows him, "Behold, the sword of Elendil." That's his
birthright.
Well, that's his macho
Threat.
Threat.
Oh, okay.
Right, because that was what chopped off the ring. Right, and then what does Sauron reveal?
I'm coming for the rest of you.
Well, I'm going to kill your woman, or your woman is dead because of me. Right. And so he has no motivation. He has no love motivation anymore, right?
It's just for Frodo.
It's just for Frodo.
Oh. Right? Okay. Ow.
It's an absolutely amazing.
See, this is why I was super excited for doing this, is because like one, I know Isaac's gonna have a fun time talking about Lord of the Rings because it's fun to talk about Lord of the Rings, but I know that I was gonna have fun partially for like the insights that he brings and partially because like I love talking about it. This is one of those insights where I'm just like, ow, okay, just give me Aragorn feels. It's cool. Anyway,
that's the description of the king in the Lord of the Rings, right?
Goodness
It's pretty tremendous,
gracious.
right? And so
now I'm curious. So my second character is Samwise Gamgee because he's flippin' amazing.
For our listeners, we will be going a lot more over time this time because we still have 2 more characters, and we're just gonna go for it. So if you're listening right now, just know that we're probably gonna go for another hour or something like that, and probably I don't know, but we'll just keep going, and then we'll do the markers on YouTube,
and
and you can come back and listen.
Yeah. Anyway, so with Sam, it's something where I have very mixed and weird feelings about him. Well, like, obviously I love him. Obviously I love his character. He's fantastic and amazing and wonderful and beautiful and all the things that I love. However, he has issues.
Yeah.
And it was really weird because when I was growing up watching the movies, I was like, oh, him and Frodo are best friends, this, that, and the other. They're adventure partners. Sam's able to save Frodo. Like, he's trying to defend him and protect him and all these things. And then as I got older, I'm like, okay, Sam is also human. And actually, he's kind of just the gardener. And he cares about Frodo, but he's really more
his
of
bodyguard?
like... Yeah.
His gardener. That was such an awesome line. He was so infuriated
Disgusted.
by the idea that he would be a bodyguard, but he was like, gardener.
Not even like I'm his friend. Like, no, I'm his gardener.
His gardener.
Yeah, well, and it's also like he's kind of there because Gandalf told him to be there. He wouldn't have normally joined in that journey. Like he doesn't have the guts to go and tell Rosie that he loves her. Like,
Yes.
why? He's not gonna have the guts to be like, I'll go off on an adventure with you. No,
Right.
that was an order.
Samwise the Brave. That is his story of becoming brave.
Yes,
Yeah.
and so it's something where falling in love with him even when he is weak and a coward and absolutely precious, and then he goes on the adventure, and then so like with Fellowship, it's this he needs to maintain his honor essentially and staying with him, and so he's going through his fears and going through all of this weirdness, this new stuff that he has never before ever really come across. Even in Bilbo's stories, like you can tell, like he's more of a gardener. He's kind of, he's very down to earth. but it's something where like Frodo liked his stories. Frodo kind of liked the idea of going off.
His first shot in the film is him holding up a
flower. Plant.
Or plant. Yeah.
He's holding a plant and he's just so happy. But yeah, and so it's something where like Frodo wasn't really satisfied with that. Like like when we see Frodo first, he's reading a book. Mm-hmm. So it's something where Frodo did want adventure. Frodo did kind of want that. Sam didn't want that at all.
Nope.
Sam was like, give me plants. If I'm really lucky, Rosie will look at me twice.
Right.
Like, and that was one of the things is like Sam couldn't even he didn't even have the guts to ask someone out who already liked him. Like,
yeah, basically,
ow.
right? Frodo
Also,
had to get him
mood.
to dance.
What a
with
mood!
Her.
Like, I usually tend to, for a really long time, like I genuinely like avoided people who liked me. So I 100% understand. I was just like, nah, you can't actually love me. Like, if you actually found out who I was, you would hate me.
It's a mode of self-hatred for that
yes,
to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's so true. Anyway, but yeah, so he has to overcome his fear of the unknown in Fellowship because that's what it is. It's all about he. There are so many different places that he could turn back. That's why his quote in Two Towers is so powerful. Is because he didn't have to be there.
Yeah. Well, after the Council of Elrond, he didn't have to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't have to go.
And he wanted to go home. He was
He
the first one
did.
that started packing.
I thought Frodo was the first one to start packing.
No. So Frodo,
No, you're right. Frodo
yeah.
was the one he was like, yeah, I'm ready to go home. And then you're like, buddy, like we aren't even halfway through the movie yet.
We're even a quarter way through the trilogy.
No, yeah,
yet.
you are. Oh, yeah, no, not even a quarter way through the trilogy.
We still got we still got five
Five more
parts
parts to go. It's so painful when he says that too, because you hear the happy
I'm actually
music
pretty
too.
sure that's in the book as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, like I'm ready. You know what? Yeah, you're right. I am ready to. We've done what was asked of us. I'm ready to go home. And they're all like, yay! And then he's like, I will take the ring to Mordor. And it's like,
Well, what's interesting about Sam, I think, is that his most prominent characteristic is his loyalty to Frodo,
Yes.
right? And so what makes him want to go is his loyalty to Frodo.
Yes.
Right? He runs into the secret council, and he's like, "You're not
he's
going."
like, oi!
Yeah, not without me, right? Not without me, you're not going. And he doesn't have a full understanding of the danger that they're in.
No.
Which is, and
Well,
neither
because
do
at
Merry
this
and
point,
Pippin.
yeah, no,
right?
at this point he has no. Well, I feel like Merry might kind of have grasped a little bit because of the Black Riders, just a little bit.
Well, so does Sam. Right?
Sam does a little
saw
bit,
it.
but I feel like Sam is more in between Merry and Pippin than he is between Frodo and Merry. Because Pippin really doesn't understand, hence
Pippin
the like.
really doesn't understand.
Oh, poor Pippin. He's
It's
just
really
like,
funny.
you need people of intelligence on this.
Right. Where are we going? Yeah.
That
So
rules you out, Pip.
So Sam, I think Sam doesn't. He only understands I need to take care of Frodo,
Yes.
which is his most endearing and it's his greatest strength.
Yes.
But his absolute greatest weakness
Yes.
as well. Right. And so Sam, a lot of people, including Tolkien himself, say Sam is the true hero of the
Yes.
story. I forgot which letter it was, but I'm in one of the
Yes.
letters that Tolkien wrote. He's like, without a doubt, Sam is the chief hero in this story.
Like Frodo and Aragorn are the main protagonists, but Sam is the main hero.
Right. And so what I think a lot of people
Because
have
him and
taken
Aragorn are
that-
the only mortals who were able to relinquish the ring.
No,
when it was
Sam
offered.
is not able to relinquish the ring.
Frodo doesn't take it from him.
He does take it.
He
from him.
does?
He snatches it out of
He
his
does
hand.
snatch it a little bit more, but it's mostly relinquished.
Not really.
Interesting.
So Sam is still fighting that.
He is still fighting. I guess he doesn't
when
get to finish that
Frodo
fight.
snatches it away from him, right? And so Sam is not. So that's the understanding that people have to have, right? Like a lot of people think like, obviously, if Sam wasn't there, Frodo would not have finished the quest. That's very obvious. But a lot
Yeah.
of people, I think, throw Sam in and be like, he should have just been the one that had the ring.
He would have. Again, he's a lover of green and growing things. He would have.
But my argument would actually
Fallen
be
into
that
despair.
Sam is more corruptible to the ring because he has a stronger desire for loyalty, right? And
Really?
yes,
The loyalty would have. Why?
his
Because he would have used it like Boromir to protect.
he would have
He would
tried,
have tried.
right? He would have been like, let me. What was his motive for helping Frodo carry the ring? Let me take it a while for you. Let me take the burden on for you. And what does that do?
That's
that opens that thought up of
true.
I can carry it for you, right? You don't have to carry it
Yeah.
anymore. I can just do it for you, right? And it was
Enabling. Actually, it's not entirely true.
not really,
Not
but
really
yes.
enabling.
Right? But it was very quick,
Something.
right? As they got nearer to Mordor, it became really
Codependence?
quick, right?
I
And
don't
so
know.
Sam
Anyway,
had
yeah.
the ring for maybe he didn't even really touch it. It was
like a
just-
day, wasn't
yeah, It was, or in the film, it's like less than.
It was less than a day
right?
in the film.
And so yeah, right. So we were talking about film only, right?
Yeah, sorry.
And so it's his greatest weakness as well,
Yeah.
right? Sam would not have taken the ring to
No.
the cracks of doom.
Nope.
Right, which is why the task was not appointed to him, and it makes his line with Frodo at the end so much stronger because that's his realization. I can't carry it for you. I
It's
can't do
also-
it for you.
One of the things of it also makes you kind of wonder just how. I don't actually know. Never mind. I was gonna say like it makes you curious how Smeagol was, not Golem, but like when he was Smeagol, like before
Well,
that.
we saw how
but he was
Smeagol
still
was.
kind of greedy
Yeah,
because he's had all those birthday presents from Deagle, and so something where like he still clearly
it's a little bit
wanted
different in the
things.
films, but yeah, I know
And
what
so
you're
it's
getting
something where I was like, maybe Sam, because Sam's super sweet. Like if Sam could covet the ring like that and Smeagol could do that, then maybe Smeagol was also like sweet, happy hobbit thing. Not hobbit, but close.
I mean, they're river folk. They're kind of like
river
hobbits.
folk. I'm really irritated that I don't remember what the term is because there's a term.
No, I think Gandalf just calls them hobbit like river folk.
Yeah.
In the books.
He's too good a waterman.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And so Sam has that loyalty aspect to him, but his learning is I can't carry it for you.
Yes.
And that's actually a characteristic of a lot of people who have that loyalty part in their kind of DNA or in their personality. People who are very loyal and helpful and supporting of other people often take the burdens of other people on themselves, right? And that's the greatest weakness. Right?
That's one of the reasons why I love him so much is because of the fact that that is a quality. See, this is the difficulty is like I am extremely loyal, but it's a very weird kind of loyal where like if you don't even bother protecting you from yourself, why would I stay around to watch? So like I'm so like it's weird and I'm still not 100% sure what to do with it, but often with like friendships, like best friends, so like really 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 close, it's this thing of like okay, like I know a lot about you as a person. I don't want to say everything, but like
You're not talking about me, right? You're
No.
talking about a hypothetical person that in your
my
imagination. You don't need to be
general
specific,
type
right?
of best friend.
Okay, yeah.
It's something where I will often come to the realization of like, okay, so this, that, and the other, and then just kind of assume that they'll do the right thing for themselves because I have my friends up on a pedestal, just because that happens. And so then when they don't do that thing, so like when Frodo does horrible things, not horrible, but like when Frodo gets greedy, when Frodo falls, it's like, wait, like I thought you were better than that. So it's something where like there's the loyalty of like,
Yeah, that's part of Sam as well.
yeah,
That's
and
a big
so
part of Sam.
I relate a lot to Sam because of the loyalty, but it's also like that's one of the reasons why Sam is so hurt when Frodo's like, no, you're the one who did this, like stay away. He does stay away because he's hurt that Frodo didn't trust him. And it's something where for me, like I get it's excruciatingly painful when like I'm like, wait, I know you and I know that like the core of you would go here, so why are you going in this direction? And they're like, oh well, you don't actually know me. And I'm like, I've literally studied you and I love people puzzles, and like this is one of the few things that makes me tick is the fact that I love figuring out how other people tick. So yeah, I do actually have this sense of you, so okay, explain to me. And then they don't. And so with Frodo, there's no trust, and so it hurts me when my friends don't trust that I know them.
So Sam is really interesting in this way because you're actually kind of describing him right now. And this is part of the reason I really love the film setup of the Two Towers, right? Not in opposition to the books, obviously. I love the books as well.
No, the books are amazing.
But I'm just talking about the Two Towers film as an entity on its own. Remember what we said with Aragorn, where his story at the end, or his ending point at the end of Two Towers, the part of Two Towers, is he learns to be the affirmative, encouraging support, right? Sam does not do that, right? One of the chief questions of Two Towers is, can corruption be redeemed? Right.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of pairing of characters, right, in Lord of the Rings. So you have Sam and Frodo, right? You have Pippin and Merry. You have Aragorn and Boromir. You have Legolas and Gimli. What they do in the Two Towers is not closeness, but it's in terms of thematic for characters. Theoden and Gollum are the two opposite spectrums that are being paired up, right?
Interesting.
Can corruption be redeemed, right? Theoden's is yes.
Gollum's
is no, which is interesting because most people, like when you want the
is
conclusion
it just a matter
to a film,
of time that Theoden was corrupted for less time?
No, I don't think so. Right.
Interesting.
So at least the message of the film is that the support that Theoden had in Aragorn and Gandalf was what helped him overcome that corruption.
So does Sam? Because in my opinion, Sam doesn't believe that corruption is redeemable, which is why he's so.
No, I don't know if he has that belief, but he doesn't have an understanding of corruption. Right?
Yes.
So he's never held the ring at that point in time.
True.
So he doesn't know.
He hasn't
the
really
effect.
seen it in close up, because even with the Council of Elrond when it was out, he was farther away.
Right.
So he hasn't really had close contact. It's always been with Frodo.
So Sam, so Theoden's arc in Two Towers is his redemption.
Yes.
Right. in understanding who he is and riding out in glory, right? Gollum is kind of in this story, right? Is the opposite of that.
Yeah.
He has two people, one who understands him intimately and the other who does not at all, right?
Frodo understands. Sam doesn't.
Frodo understands Gollum, but he still wants to keep away from Gollum. And that's the major issue. Frodo knows that Gollum is going to be what he ends up as, right?
Which is why he's hoping that
right.
he's redeemable.
He tells Sam, he's like, I have to hope that he can come back. And Sam's like, why? Right? Why do you hope that? Because he doesn't
and then
understand.
he's like, you don't understand.
Right, you don't understand.
Kind of
right?
doesn't.
And so Frodo's prodding in that scene and in many other scenes, Sam prods Frodo to keep on fighting, right?
Yes.
But the prodding does the exact opposite of what he's trying to get Frodo to do, right? Because it's perceived by Frodo as a rejection of his ability, right? He goes, I know what I have to do, right? That's what Frodo says, right? Yeah, he goes. Sam goes, you have to fight
me. It's mine, my own.
right? And it
Don't
doesn't.
you know who you sound like?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Don't you know who you sound like? You sound like that guy. And Frodo goes, that's gonna be me, right? So why are you creating this barrier between me and him? That's gonna be me. I have to believe that he can be redeemed, right? But I remember in the marshes, Frodo's also kind of repelled by Gollum because he's like, I'm gonna be that. Ugh, right?
I feel like that's kind of the thing for me with Frodo is that, like, again, everyone can relate to all of these characters. You just have to try hard enough. But with Frodo, it's something where for me, like, I'm constantly trying to prove that people can be redeemed. So it's like, it's taken me years and years and years of figuring stuff out to, like, stop trying to think that, like, this is a very specific example based on my own extremely biased point of view, but it's something where, like, I very rarely help homeless people as individuals. I don't.
I mean, I'm sure that's generalizable to a lot of the population.
But I do it for very specific reasons because I've gone out of my way to talk to a lot of homeless people to figure out, like, how they're different. Maybe they are just having hard times and hard circumstances and things are just different. No. Most of the homeless people that I have talked to, and again, this is a very specific thing. I'm also 23 years old, and it's something where, like, obviously I haven't talked to every single homeless person who's, like, existing right now. But
what?
I know, right? What? But with the homeless people that I've talked to, most of them, think like 90% of the people that I've talked to, it's something where they're like this because they want to be, because they've chosen this. And it's something where it's a mentality that they're not willing to look at. They're not willing to do self-examination. They don't want to have self-awareness. Like, people have told them that they're rude. People have told them that they don't treat women correctly, or they don't treat men correctly, or they don't treat children correctly.
And that's the chief sin of
Sam. And they don't.
Right. That is the chief sin of Sam.
Which part?
What you just said, right? So Sam doesn't understand the lure of the ring, right? He doesn't understand the burden of that. So in his perception, it's all about telling the other person what to do. It's all about telling the other person what they should be doing, right? He doesn't actually empathize with Gollum or Frodo until he has to hold the ring for the first time, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why we get that great line at the end, I can't carry it for you, right? Because he realized, he knows intimately. But at this point, especially with Gollum, right, he didn't understand that.
So
right?
wait, so you're saying that he didn't understand that it wasn't a choice?
No, he didn't understand. He could not empathize with the characteristic.
Okay, can you explain how that is direct? Because, like, yeah,
he couldn't
how
understand
you got that
corruption.
from my thing with homeless people.
Right. So in this way, because he couldn't understand the plight of what Frodo was going through, of what Gollum has gone through for hundreds of years. That's really crazy to think about. But of that plight, he stands outside of the situation telling them what to do. Right? You should do this. You should fight against it.
Because he doesn't understand the direct.
Because he has a moralistic understanding, right? And so he has never had to reckon with the power of the ring, right? And so moralizing doesn't help. It actually
makes it worse.
Right? He
That's
does that with Frodo. He does that with Gollum.
Trying to talk to homeless people because it ended up being just painful for both of us.
So telling people what they should do doesn't help. The understanding, perception, and support does. That's the difference between Theoden and Gollum. Theoden had a brotherly figure who could actually understand his
core.
Yeah, right? And then help him get to it without undermining his identity.
Interesting.
Right? Sam, on the other hand, is just telling Frodo, you should do this. Telling Gollum, you're dirty, you're rotten, whatever it is, right? Because he doesn't understand.
Interesting.
Right? And so...
Which is funny because he's portrayed as this super sweet character,
right.
this gardener, and he still ends up inflicting a lot of harm that ends up hurting Gollum and Frodo.
Right.
Who he is loyally trying to protect because he refuses to understand and have that empathy that Frodo has.
Exactly. Right. In a way, Sam is like that religious elder brother. Remember the parable of the prodigal son? Right? No.
Yeah. Well, no, obviously I remember it. I'm trying to piece it together in my head how that's...
The guy had a brother, right, who never ran away, and his main complaint was, what? Why didn't you do this for me?
Yeah.
Right? Like he was that standing outside religious figure of going, what like the moralizing force. Does that make sense? Right. And so Sam is that character in this.
He's like, I know what the right thing to do is, and I'm doing it. Why
aren't you doing it?
Yeah.
Right. Why aren't you fighting? Right. I've never held a ring before, but I can tell you how to fight the ring. Right. But you can't. Right. His own arc tells you he couldn't. Well, within less than a day, he wanted the ring for himself. Out of loyalty, of course, right? But that's the corruption, right?
That's why all strengths are weaknesses and all weaknesses are strengths. It just depends on how much you have of them at whatever time.
He still has still has a beautiful story. Yeah. Right? His character development is still top notch. He is the hero again of the story, no doubt, right?
He's amazing.
But he still has that flaw, right?
And again, Tolkien has so much depth.
Right. Yeah. And so my second character is Gollum, right? And Gollum is probably...
Smeagol, precious.
Gollum, I feel like, is one of the...
Never come back! Sorry, that's
okay.
Still one of my favorite scenes.
That's okay. No, it is
Such
one of my favorite scenes as well. There's not much in any film ever that can probably top that scene that happens between Smeagol and himself.
Good stuff.
So the thing that Gollum, I think, represents Frodo, Sam, and Gollum are kind of like a perfect trio.
Yes.
Right? Frodo is us. Right? Sam is us. But also Gollum is us. Mm-hmm. Right? And it's just, but Gollum is us who has been corrupted and become dependent on sin, right? He needs it, right?
To function.
He needs it to function. He needs it to feel anything about himself. It's his precious.
Like he'd rather have the self-hatred and the self-loathing because
he loves and hates himself at the same time.
He cannot because he can't feel anything if he doesn't have it.
Yeah.
There's just the abject terror.
Gandalf makes this really good point when, it's the first time we're introduced to Gollum in the
Fellowship?
In the Fellowship,
yeah,
right?
With the ladder
After
scene
the torture,
and the weird eyes.
Right.
Oh.
Because that's when he's actually introduced, right? He was tortured first, right? And then when they go into Moria, we actually see him climbing the ladder, right? And so when Gandalf is talking about him, he goes, this is his quote, "He will never be rid of his need for it," the ring, right? He hates and loves the ring as he hates and loves himself. Smeagol's life is a sad story. And then Frodo goes, "I wish Bilbo had killed him when he had the chance."
No, it was a pity that Bilbo didn't kill him when he had the chance. And he's like, it was pity that saved him.
Right. Gandalf goes, "Pity. It was pity that stayed Bilbo's hand." Right. Many that live deserve life. Some that die. Many that live deserve death. Some that die deserve life. Can you give it to them? Do not be too eager to deal out death and judgment. Even the very wise cannot see all ends. My heart tells me that Gollum has some part to play yet, for good or ill, before this is over. The pity of Bilbo may rule the fate of many. Just that line. First of all, Ian McKellen, you are awesome. That delivery, every delivery from Gandalf, so good. I could listen to Ian McKellen like read the Lord of the Rings. To be honest,
that would be amazing.
That would be him, and I mean, rest in peace, Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
But when Christopher Lee was alive, like those were the two that I wanted to read, like the Lord of the Rings, like in an audiobook format or something
Ian
like that.
McKellen, get on it before you go.
I'm going to be a little bit more polite than that, please.
Please.
But that's the introduction of Smeagol, and that's actually his entire character arc, right? Because that is, in a sense, Gollum is us, right? And despite that part of us that is corrupted, that's still a part that is useful to the ending of evil, to the ending of whatever it is, sin, right? It has a part to play despite being that.
Corruption still has a use. It still has...
I mean, it's unfortunate, but it still has that
Again,
utility.
as long as there is free will, thank God, that will be a long time, but like as long as there is free will, you're going to have corruption. You're going to have that giving into sin. It's going to happen. Yeah. And that's one of the things that like Aragorn learns, and it's one of the things that Sam doesn't quite understand, which is also why he's so lovable, is because he's an idealist. And
Sam
is an idealist.
I thought we were talking about Gollum. And you're like, Gollum is so nice.
My bad. and so with
might have just been my thought.
Gollum's kind of Gollum is not an idealist. Smeagol is an idealist, and Smeagol's like, I can Frodo believes in me because he doesn't quite understand that Frodo only believes in him because he's trying to believe in himself. Yeah, he doesn't really believe in Smeagol.
So Frodo doesn't have that kingly aspect about him, right? He's doing it because he wants to believe that he can come back. It is a selfish thing.
Yeah.
Right, and Smeagol doesn't understand that.
Yeah.
Frodo tries to call him back, and it actually kind of works for a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Right. But of course, Smeagol doesn't understand. He has an idyllic view of the world. It's black and white. It's either good or evil, right? And the good people, the good master, right, is kind of, I mean, he betrays him, right?
Yeah.
Or his view is he betrays him.
Because one of the things is like that actually always bothered me in the movies, and I actually blamed Frodo for
Frodo blamed himself.
Reemerging.
Frodo blames himself, right? If you remember, right afterwards, right before Faramir comes in and says, "This is the something of all the riddles," right? This is the answer to all the riddles, right? Right before he comes,
is the answer to all the riddles.
Sam goes, "Frodo, put on the ring, disappear," right?
And he's like, "No, he'll see me."
Well, not just that, but Frodo has this. Like if you watch him, he realized that he betrayed Smeagol, right? And he goes, I actually led him into that trap. What did I just do? I'm becoming like him. I'm becoming evil like him. And that's his main fear, right? And if I put on the ring, he'll see me, right? And it's this kind of thing that happens to Frodo of this, I'm more Gollum right now than I am Smeagol.
Oh, got it.
In a sense, right? You know what I mean?
Interesting, yeah.
Right? And so, I mean, if you think about it, it's pretty horrible. Like, Smeagol's life is pretty horrendous.
Oh, it's awful.
Right? Like, after he got the ring, right, he lived in a cave for like 500 years doing his own stuff. And then some hobbit came and stole his precious thing. Yeah. Right? And then he tries to track it down, and then he's found out and tortured about it, right? And then he's set free, right, by the torturers. And so he wants to get his precious back because that's the only real thing that he knows.
Also, I'm really weirded out they didn't follow him.
Well,
like somehow they thought that he wouldn't, like, anyway, they just underestimated him, and I'm like, why? Everyone underestimates Gollum.
Right, exactly, right. So, and he still tries to get back to it, and he finds the Fellowship that has it, right? And he tries to get it from them because it's his in his mind, right? That's mine, right? And then they force him. They find out, they capture him, and they force him to guide them to the place where he was tortured.
Yes.
Right? And then he loses them, but those that he is guiding, right? This is the fountain now. Have tricked him into being trapped and tortured by men.
Yeah,
that's a pretty horrendous life, right? Just in that film aspect, right? That's his perception, right? So it's pretty easy to see how he reverted, I think.
Well, yeah. Well, it's also like, okay, so again,
And there's still the will to be, because he still fights with himself, whether he wants to revert or not, all the way into the beginning of the Return of the King.
Yes.
Right? There's that merging that takes place, right? The
Yes.
re-merging of Gollum and Smeagol that takes place. So he's still fighting it, right? But he doesn't have a conception anymore of the idyllic good, which Frodo represented, right?
Yeah.
He only has everything that I know has betrayed me. There is no good. There is only evil, right? There's only self. There's only self-preservation. I can only fight and do for myself. So therefore, I'm going to get these guys to Shelob, and she'll take care of them for me. And then I can get my precious
I will
back.
pick the ring from that corpse.
Right?
I feel like,
That's a sad story.
well, yes, it's a sad story, and it's
Gandalf was
also
right.
like, it's pitifully accurate because like part of it's the other end of the spectrum of the self-doubt. It's the other end of
Right.
the spectrum of that self-hatred, that self-loathing, is the fact that if you don't conquer it, that's where it drags you, is the fact
Yeah.
that like, I will never get out of the circle. I will never be more than a horrible being. I will never attain goodness. I will never attain redemption. I will never attain. And when you get stuck in that spiral, you get stuck in that pit, that hole that you've created, you're so far down that you can't even see the light of the day or the light of the moon, whatever the heck day it is. Like, you're just stuck
Right.
there.
And you know what's the knife in Smeagol's heart?
What?
Sam's speech.
What are we holding on to? Because he's talking about the stories,
Right.
that there's some good in this world.
And it's worth fighting for. Right? Right before Sam says that, Frodo asks, what are we
What are we
fighting for? Right?
No, it's what are
What are
we
we
holding on to?
Yeah, you're right. You got it at the same time. So what are we holding on to? Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't go to Sam after that. It goes to
Gollum.
Gollum's face.
Yeah.
And Gollum looks
He
up,
looks like-
trying to hope.
Yeah.
Right? And then Sam says that there's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for. But in Gollum's conception, there is no good. And so right after
And
that,
he's like, so
it goes
Sam
to
is
Gollum,
lying. Yeah.
and Gollum looks down.
Yeah, he's
Right.
like, there's no hope. There's
no
nothing.
hope.
If that's
There's
the
no
only
hope for me.
thing
Yeah.
that you're holding on to, I don't even have that.
Yeah. There's nothing there. Right.
Oh, God. Just like, ugh.
Yeah. And so, and
that is my, like, Gandalf's quote about the, all you have to do is decide what to do with the time that is given to you is my favorite quote of all time. But Sam's thing is like so right under that. It's why, like, that quote is why I'm a writer. Like Gandalf's quote is like, I forget it sometimes, but that's how I live my life, or that's how I do my best to do it anyways, is with that quote in mind. But Sam's quote is the reason for my ability to carry on.
yeah, so it's kind of a mindset kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
The Frodo mindset is we have hope. The Smeagol Gollum mindset is there is no hope for me anymore.
Yeah.
Right? And it's a two-edged knife, and it's the one that buries that evil into Smeagol some more.
Cements it
Right?
in there.
Yeah, cements it in there. Right? Smeagol looks at Sam hoping for something good to hang on to, but what Sam actually has said and has done throughout the entire movie was a rejection of Gollum. Right? It's a rejection of that character.
But it's true though, because at the end of it, he's even Sam, when it no longer matters, Sam is actually like, you know what? All right, there is some good in you too, even though there isn't anymore. Like, Gollum smushed it
Afterwards,
yes.
After
So
this whole
Gollum has
thing.
smushed it, and Sam is finally like,
So-
all right, you have some good in you
so
too.
Sam didn't do it until
When
it was
Too late.
gone.
Yes.
Too late. Way too late to do it. Right? Sam hadn't realized this need
He
that Gollum had.
recognized the brightness of a star after it had died.
I guess. Is that a quote?
No,
Oh, okay.
that was just me.
Maybe you should make it a quote. Quoting Rosemary on Instagram.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Right? And Gollum's song, which is the ending credit song of the Two Towers. This used to be actually, funnily enough, like when I first like, probably because I watched Two Towers for so long, right? This was
Yeah.
actually my favorite ending credit song. Now it's not because it's kind of dark, but the key part of Gollum's song at the end of the Two Towers is
The fish thing?
no Gollum's song. So in the end, I'll be what I will be.
Oh, in the books.
No. Have you never heard the ending credits song for the Two Towers?
I know I've seen the ending credits for Fellowship, and I know for a fact I've watched the Return of the King ones.
You've never
I not?
heard.
I don't think I've heard that song.
It is so good.
What?
It is Gollum in a nutshell.
I guess because it's the middle movie that I always I'm like, okay, cool, it's done. Go to Return of the King. How have I never?
Oh my gosh,
listened to
I
it
am in
always?
shock right now. I am actually a little bit in shock.
What?
Where once was light, now darkness falls. Where once was love, love is no more. This is Gollum's song. You've never heard this song before.
I have never. I'm looking at the lyrics right now, and I'm just like, what is this?
Oh my gosh. I cannot call you a fan of Lord of the Rings.
Thank you so much for this.
I cannot call you a fan of the Lord of the Rings.
I am sorry that I was so excited to start Return of the King.
Let's read this.
I'm so
Where
down.
once was light, now darkness falls. Where once was love, love is no more. Don't say goodbye. Don't say I didn't try. These tears we cry are falling rain for all the lies you told us, the hurt, the blame. And we will weep to be so alone. We are lost. We can never go home. So in the end, I will be what I will be. No loyal friend was ever there for me. Now we say goodbye. We say you didn't try. These tears you cry have come too late. Right? Take back the lies, the hurt, the blame. Then you will weep when you face the end alone. You are lost. You can never go home. That's
You are
Gollum's
lost.
mindset.
You can never go home.
Right?
Holy.
He makes
How
them him.
have I never
I don't know.
seen or heard of this before?
This was so good. Like I remember.
I'm so upset right now. Like, I'm so happy that I found this.
I'm a little bit
because
upset,
you shared
too.
this with me, but like, how did it?
That's the ending credit song to The Two Towers.
I have never heard this before.
Yeah.
Like, and I can hear it in his voice too. So maybe I did hear it at one point, but I just forgot about
It's not in
existence.
his voice. It's not in his voice.
It's just there.
It's a little child's voice.
And it's just told. Oh.
Yeah. It's an incredibly well done thing.
Maybe that's why I don't recognize it. I'm so upset. I will have to go and pay attention to it, and I will let you know.
I mean, just go
next
fast
week,
forward
but,
to the ending credits. Like, you have chapter skips now, right?
Yeah, but I can also look it up on YouTube. But
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I'm irritated that I'm like, maybe I have heard it and I'm just like blanking out because I was thinking like, wait, I haven't heard that in Gollum's voice. So I probably do know, if it's not in Gollum's voice, then I probably do know what it is, but I didn't recognize it for what it was.
Go on YouTube, listen to Gollum's song. This
is gorgeous.
It is really well done.
This is so irritatingly gorgeous.
It's his exact mindset at the end of The Two Towers, right? And it's very telling.
Like, now we say goodbye. We say you didn't try.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'm irritated because this is something that like I would write, and so I'm just like, how did I not know about something this beautiful?
You're saying that your writing is this beautiful. That's what you're saying right
Yes.
now.
Feel free to go check out my poetry page and confirm it for yourself, or just tell me that it sucks and go away. But
Oh, don't say it sucks.
I don't
say what you can
think
improve.
It sucks. Yeah.
Say what Rosemary can improve.
And please don't say stop writing.
Oh,
That's the time segment he laughs at. Anyway, but
self-deprecating
this
humor.
is so gorgeous. Yes,
Great.
it is. It's
Yeah.
good stuff.
So a lot.
That's why you like Gollum, because he's the epitome of self-deprecation. He's so consumed by
but
self-deprecation
he's not
that he's just
laughing about
deprecated.
it. Yeah, he's not humorous about it.
Yeah.
I do like Gollum's character. I think he actually defines a lot of the Lord of the Rings. And the filmmakers actually acknowledge this because the ending of The Two Towers is the beginning of the whole thing. You have Gollum at the beginning before all our fellowship, right? Because he's in the prologue.
Yeah.
You have Gollum, which is almost the main character of The Two Towers.
Yeah.
And it ends with his song. So the film really wants to cement that. And the beginning of The Return of the King is the flashback of Gollum.
Yes.
Right. And so his entire story is replete in this in the trilogy, and really in the Lord of the Rings whole I guess thing that Tolkien wrote. And so Gollum is that aspect of us that we really don't like,
but it's still there.
We have to deal with, right? And it's the thing it's destructive.
I feel like that's the thing that bothers me, and like it's beautifully put for like last episode and this one is the fact that like. Right now, this is kind of like the centerfold of what I'm going through is the fact of like dealing with all that self-doubt, dealing with that shame, dealing with how to balance moving forward and having hope without being so optimistic and idealistic that you end up hurting people around you by being that way. How do you have how do you have that balance? What the heck does balance look like? And then you look around and you don't see anyone else who's balanced, and you're like, okay, well, so I have no role models. Fantastic. And the only things that you do have are like fictional characters. And then like, again, with Lord of the Rings, they all fail. Gandalf fails. Aragorn fails. Boromir fails. Legolas fails. Legolas doesn't really... Legolas fails. He was there. Gimli,
I wouldn't say Legolas
I feel like Legolas and Gimli
fails,
don't necessarily fail, but they don't go out of their way to succeed either.
Right. Yeah.
And so
They follow.
They don't pop out of the woodwork because elves.
He's a wood elf.
Yeah.
You should have said he's a wood elf.
He's a wood elf.
He's specifically a wood elf,
Yeah,
right? He's
he doesn't
different from
pop out of
Galadriel. He's
yes.
different from Elrond. Yeah.
And so it's something where, and then like Merry and Pippin fail, and Frodo and Sam, like everyone fails. The only one who doesn't really fail is like Galadriel.
The only one who doesn't fail is Gollum.
Because he's already failed?
Well, Gollum gets the ring back, doesn't he?
And then he dies.
And then he dies.
He dies holding the thing he loves the most in
Right.
the world. Don't we all want to go that way?
I mean, right?
We just hope that it's not an object, it's a person. But okay, maybe not.
I'm pretty sure Gollum regards the ring as a person.
Yeah, I did speak to him.
Yeah. Isn't that scary? A little bit?
If I have like a beautiful mind ending and it's this like thing and it's talking
No,
to
I
me
just
and
meant
it's
the
not
story
really-
of
I know,
Gollum,
my
but,
brain
like-
is like, yeah. But yeah. Yeah.
Tolkien knew how to write a tragedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is one of my favorite things, and that's one of the reasons why
I mean,
I'm
this
actually...
is both tragedy and triumph.
I'm happy that Peter Jackson was the one who did this because of the fact that because of that background with horror and documentaries, he did this as more of a history and he did this as more of a dark tragedy rather than as a comedy or as like a musical. Because
Or an
apparently
action.
there was this Canadian group that actually wanted to do a musical. Like, screw those people. Why would just no? Anyway, sorry. I'm sad about that.
Or as even like action focused.
There's a
right?
Russian version. I have not seen it. But I
don't
was
wanna
sent
see
it, and I watched the first couple minutes, and it's like the weirdest thing. And they have Russian subtitles, so it's in Russian, and then there's Russian subtitles. They don't have it in English, so you're just watching it, and you're just confused.
Yeah, a lot of foreign films are like that. So,
That's fun.
like Chinese films, they have Chinese subtitles. A lot of Korean films have Korean subtitles. It's just part of the
Because they
thing.
speak too fast?
No.
Because we speak
it's
fast, and we have that option available, but it's an option. It's
right.
not.
It's just part of
built
the
in.
culture kind of thing. There's a lot of... So cinema, oh man, now we're getting the history of cinema a little bit. But the history of cinema, I mean, in the West, it started as like in America. It started in America. Okay. So, but it was about the visual aspects, right? But that didn't get around the world until after the dialogue and the music had started coming in.
Yep.
Right. And so you don't have that evolution of the idea of film is the moving picture rather than the story that is told. Right. And so in these other cultures, then
It's the story, not the visuals.
Yeah, so people want to understand what's going
Which is
on
why we're
with the
so
dialogue.
addicted to it, and why a lot of it's trash right now is because we just want the visual vegetation.
Well, no, I would disagree with that because film again is that visual medium, right?
But
you have to be able to
needs more
tell-
depth than that too.
You have to have the depth in the visuals rather than trying to pad out with whatever. Right? Yeah. So,
but with Golem, it's something where, and with Lord of the Rings in general, it's like this. There is darkness and truth, and so in that you see the frailty of men, but you also see the hope and you see the strength too. And that's part of the point, is that you see these characters that are tender and loving and kind, that are also absolute failures at doing what they're supposed to be doing.
except Gollum.
But it takes him a while.
I'm using that as an ironic
know.
note. I'm not saying he actually he doesn't succeed in any way that we would want the story or characters to succeed, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the point of the Lord of the Rings characters.
Yeah.
That's actually what Tolkien was trying to convey.
Yeah.
Like
And he does a good job of it too. It's beautiful that what he's able to accomplish. And it's just impressive, and it's just he had like who he is as a writer, Tolkien, does come through in his writing, but he does it in a way where like it's a universal thing. It's not like with C.S. Lewis, who is also brilliant. It is a little bit not preachy, but like it's
more of the
it's more of a slam in the face of
trying
what
to-
he's
right.
wanting to say.
Sort of. C.S. Lewis does it in a different way. So what's interesting about we're getting to C.S. Lewis. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis actually approached or at least it seems like to me, that they approach storytelling in the opposite ways of each other. So,
Well, C.S. Lewis loved allegory.
right. So Tolkien liked to build the world and to let the world speak for itself. And that becomes the more obvious thing,
Okay.
right? Whereas the messages of the world is not on the surface, right?
You have to really want it.
So the world building for Tolkien is at the top, and then the messages are kind of more underlying.
They're
right?
in there rather than
Right.
given to you.
Yeah. On C.S. Lewis, though, it's the opposite. He actually does the world building very, very
Subtly.
whereas his messages are the prominent thing. At
Yes.
least in the Chronicles of Narnia.
No, in his other books too, it's kind of like that. But he also
I haven't
doesn't
read
do...
the Space Trilogy. I haven't read the other stuff, and so I don't know.
Cool.
But I'm assuming, right? But with the Chronicles of Narnia, for example, like we didn't find out until 2005. Was it 2005? Maybe it was
Okay, go for it.
2015. Somewhere around this past 2 decades, right?
Mm-hmm.
That he hid medieval chronology in there, cosmology into the Narnia tales.
Okay.
He never talked about it. He never wrote about it. It's there.
Did it.
Yeah, he just did it, right? But that was under all the much more obvious allegory, right? Do you know about this?
Vaguely.
Okay, so on I think on YouTube you can search Planet Narnia.
Okay.
And you'll there's probably lectures or something like that. It's a book, Planet Narnia, but
Yeah.
the author gave lectures and things like that, and so you can kind of go
Cool.
and see it or go listen to it,
Mm-hmm.
and he explains the actual depth of the Chronicles of Narnia that we are just beginning to mine.
That's dope.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, and so
Well, like he and Tolkien were friends. If he was just like this allegorical, bumbling fool, like Tolkien wouldn't have liked him as
Tolkien
much as he did.
hated the Chronicles of Narnia
yeah,
when he first
absolutely.
heard it, right?
Yeah.
I think it was afterwards, like after the books
he
were
was cool
done,
with
he
it.
was like, okay, they're pretty good.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, C.S. Lewis didn't like orcs or the trees, talking trees, or like other things.
Right. So it's interesting how they did their stuff because it's very clear Tolkien did not like allegory and did not like that kind of obvious, Jesus is Aslan kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas C.S. Lewis didn't like the world building ish aspects that Tolkien was doing as much. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting the approaches that they did to him. And I think.
Because writing is amazing.
Yeah. You were going to say something about that with Tolkien? Was that what you were going to? That's okay. It's getting late.
Train of thought has left the building.
You're tired. It's fine.
Maybe, possibly.
Yeah. Emotions are down.
Possibly.
Train of thought is done. Personality cores are
Time
done.
to go
dying.
to sleep. Nah. But
Time for the unicorn.
Aircorn.
Oh yeah, Eric.
It's time for the aircorn.
I was just
He
referring to
can
Inside
tuck
Out.
me in anytime.
Oh
God.
dear. I'm going to
there
blast
was another dolphin
that.
laugh.
I'm going to
Okay.
blast that part at the beginning and at the end of this podcast. No, I'm just kidding. All right, and with that, we are done with the characters section for The Lord of the Rings.
Woo!
Hope you guys really enjoyed that. We really enjoyed it. And you're pointing at me.
No, just now we have
Oh, the dime segment.
time segment. Sorry.
That's what I was going towards. And I was,
The way you said that is the way you normally end them. So I was like, wait. Okay. All right.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
dime segment.
Yeah.
What do you have?
Well, I have two,
Okay.
but they're both quotes.
Okay.
So with just for amusement, because with Lord of the Rings, it's something where it's very personal for both of us, and so I like the idea of these stories and tales helping writers today, kind of thing. And so it's Sam's quote of the which you said it. It's the Frodo is like dying on Mount Doom. He's passed out. He's dehydrated. He's just like pathetic. And Sam understands and has finally grasped the concept that he can't just carry this burden for his friend because that's almost arrogance. It is arrogance that he thinks that he thought he could do that in the first place without being corrupted by it.
Right.
And the line, and it's just cinematic glory, is he's looking at Frodo and he's like, I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you. And then he just hefts Frodo up and is like, all right, we're gonna bust a mission up this mountain. And then Gollum tries to like brain him. And then he's down, and then Frodo gets like this last burst of speed and runs up the mountain. It's
That
like,
adrenaline, man.
no, and adrenaline's great.
Yeah.
But adrenaline junkie. But yeah, and so it's something where that like it's just it signifies Sam's arc, and it helps with that because he wouldn't have said that in the beginning.
Nope.
He would have just grabbed the ring and tried like carrying it for him and be like, I got it, Mr. Frodo.
Yep.
And then he would have
fall into his own corruption.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He would have been wandering Mount Doom.
I'm
fighting
carrying it
off
for
Gollum
you.
for
You're not
ages.
strong enough to carry it. I have
So I'm
to
just
carry it for
carry
you.
forever and ever and ever, amen. Yeah. The other one that I chose, because both of us love Calvin and Hobbes, so it's a Bill Watterson quote because it's great. Well,
Go for it.
technically it's that, but it's also something where with Tolkien, one of like his main things is like he's against industry. That's one of the main complaints about Lord of the Rings is that like it doesn't really have
I'll
cities.
delve into that. Like we'll delve into that
As far as,
when
like,
we go
themes
to
and
the
stuff,
themes
yeah.
and stuff. It's
But
great.
yeah, and so it's something where with this, and it's very known in our society, like since the Industrial Revolution and since the wars and since nuclear power and stuff, we don't really create things anymore that last. We really don't. Not very many. Not in the way that we used to, where things were handed down generation to generation to generation, and it doesn't really take place anymore. Or it does, but not with anything new. Like most of the stuff that's made in the last 20 years, you can't just give it to your kids. Or if you give it to your kids, they definitely won't be able to give it to theirs. Like, it's not really going to work. Maybe with books.
I mean, when I get my Lord of the Rings leather
that's
copy
true.
book.
And the vinyl.
Yeah.
Oof.
It's gonna be...
Point is, one of the main things that Tolkien put into the books that is emphasized in the movie is the idea that there's this lastingness, and so even the ruins are beautiful. The ruins of this civilization, this is the third age. This is a long time. You're going into the fourth age. This has been a long time, and things are still around. Things are still standing. There are still people there fighting for these beautiful things. And so the quote is I believe it's Calvin yelling at Hobbes, and he's just like, we don't value craftsmanship anymore. All we value is ruthless efficiency. And I say we deny our own humanity that way. Without appreciation for grace and beauty, there's no pleasure in creating things and no pleasure in having them. Our lives are made drearier rather than richer. How could a person take pride in his work when skill and care are considered luxuries? We're not machines. We have a human need for craftsmanship. And it seemed very Tolkien-esque to me when I read that, of just like, it's true, like craftsmanship, like the elves can sing for hours and hours and hours just because the beauty of the song is worth it.
I don't recognize that quote from Calvin and Hobbes.
It's in There's Treasure Everywhere.
Okay.
It is.
What's the punchline?
I'm assuming that Hobbes said something after. This is just the one that I picked.
Okay.
This is just what I picked
I
out.
think I remember things by punchlines, and so I can't place that one in my memory.
Well, okay, if you want one with a punchline, it's Calvin's all like, I'm being educated against my will. My rights are being trampled. And Hobbes like, is it a right to remain ignorant? Calvin's like, I don't know, but I refuse to find out.
Yep.
That's one with a punchline.
I remember that one.
That's a good one.
I don't remember the first one you did.
I'll have to find it later. But
I have theirs as a treasured everywhere. I'll go search for it.
It's a good one.
It is a good one.
It's just Calvin Hobbes is good. But yeah, and so it's something where with these movies, these are things that transcend time. And going through it this last time, because before that I kind of doubted it a little bit, of just like, oh man, they are older movies, because I know a lot of people who've like who have never seen Lord of the Rings, or they've only watched it once and they watched it when they were like teenagers or something like that, or when they're adults, and so they're being like super critical of these movies, and they're comparing it to movies now. And it's something where, like, watching it this time, I was like, I am comparing it to movies now, and they're still devastatingly gorgeous. They're exceedingly well written. Mm-hmm. There's so much depth, and there's so much that you can do with it, and it's really well done, especially for, like, the technology that they had at the time. And it's something where I consider these movies to be an example of fine craftsmanship, and I think that Tolkien would agree for the most part. I think that there might be a couple things.
Tried. Right.
Yeah.
That was his whole goal, to create a mythos for Great Britain, right? Or for his kind of culture in the UK. Not for Great Britain, but I don't think, but just for that place. And so
Anyway.
I had a quote because we were both supposed to come up with a quote.
Yeah.
But you made me do the quote while we were going. It was Gollum's song.
Are you serious?
Yeah. I was going to do that quote.
Beautiful.
It is
I'm okay if you want to read it again, because that was gorgeous.
Nah.
Or you can pick a favorite verse.
Nah.
You have a favorite line? Nothing strikes you?
They're all good.
They're so good.
So good. But so with that, we are done with the characters episode. Thank you guys for listening for now about 2 hours and a half. It's been a little bit over that. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next time with the themes.
Woo! Bye.
But in the end, it's only a passing thing. This shadow, even darkness must pass. A new day will come. And when the sun shines, it'll shine out the clearer. Those were the stories that stayed with you, that meant something, even if you were too small to understand why. But I think, Mr. Frodo, I do understand. I know now. Folk in those stories had lots of chances of turning back, only they didn't. They kept going. Because they were holding on to something. What are we holding on to, Sam? But there's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo. And it's worth fighting for.